Hey, J-Bone Nation! Shaming of Jay. He's not a dopey dumb bitch. He gets laid. The court jester. The court DJ. It's time to dive into the case. To the case. Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, what's up, Mr. 20,000 subs?
Thank you. And thank you everyone for your support.
Man.
I don't know why. That was just a number that's like a big number that felt good to hit. So thank you all so much.
That is a great number, man. I'm so proud of you.
Appreciate it.
You put in so much work, dude. Like, obviously, I know, because it's never ending, this gig. We were both working harder than we did in our former careers. There's no question.
Facts. Not even close.
I am thrilled for you. You deserve it. You're
Thank
awesome. You're my brother from another mother. This is just the beginning. 20,000. We're gonna have 100,000 in front of that by this time next year. That's my prediction. So I'm super pumped for you, man. I think that's amazing. Thank you so much. If you are here right now, speaking of subs, and you have not subbed to my boy's channel, please do. We will drop his link in the chat. It's an amazing channel. Like Jay does.
Thank you.
Just great videos. He's hilarious. His shorts are hilarious. I mean, dude's just on point. So I love you, man. Congrats.
Love you. Thank you.
What a great way to start the morning. I saw it last night. He's like, should I announce it? Or should
I always wait, man.
Like 20,000. Like, I'm like, wait till you get 20,000, 15. Because we worry that, because people come and go, because we'll always start our streams and we'll require people to sub before we allow them to chat for at least 5 minutes. So, sometimes you'll get people that just jump in and then they'll dip out, which is so weird. Like, it's free. Like what would possess you unless you truly can't stand the person? They're like, I don't even want this thing. I don't want to see this guy's face even pop up on my possibilities of things, but it's amazing, dude. It's amazing. I'm super proud of you. You and Champ both, you guys are you're my favorite couple, man. So all right. Welcome everybody.
New trial day, folks.
New trial day. With every trial, we move just a little further away from Reed. So that's a great thing. So we each had short days yesterday. For those that were with Jay yesterday on Adelson, just a status, and those are kind of in and out. And the purpose of those is basically to just apprise the judge of exactly what's going on with the case, making sure that everything's on track, making sure there's no discovery issues. If you got any motions that need to be filed, they give you motion cutoff dates, things like that. And then over on our side, when we were doing Reed, another shorty, which I kind of anticipated, but I anticipated it in a different way. I thought she was actually going to hear the motion dismiss and just bounce it like super quick, be like, you waived it, sorry, take it up with the appellate court type thing. She did not do that. She set a trial date for January 27th of 2025. So I have about 6 months to convince Jay to do that trial. I will work very diligently to do it. And then we've got a motion hearing, I believe, set for, I want to say the 13th. It might be the 9th. I'll double check. Dizzy will call me on it.
Of August?
Yeah. It's a quick turnaround. She says it's for oral argument only, so no witnesses. So if people are hoping they're going to get these jurors in there, that ain't happening on that date. So it's going to be oral argument. I still anticipate 8-9. Thank you, Dizzy. 8-9 at 2 p.m. That part I do remember. So it's going to be at 2 Eastern Standard Time. So there's that. So there's that.
Bob,
yeah.
One thing I wanted to say, and I saw Josh had brought this up when he came on your show. That was interesting about the Tana Adelson hearing for folks who missed it. The attorneys, Rauschbaum, took a little page out of Yannetti and Jack. They made a motion that they didn't want the big courtroom that they're in. And I think it might be a smaller one. And
interesting.
And I have to believe, and I could, what do I know? But during these trials, the Martels have had a huge, a lot of people behind them in the gallery, a lot of people following this case. No one behind, other than people who are just sitting there just because they want to be in it, but no one like supporting the Adelsons. Right. Massive amount of people, Joel, Surviving the Survivor, Fancy, a lot of like people who cover this case, and like, I gotta believe maybe Rauschman doesn't like that. Maybe it's another reason, I don't know, but just interesting.
That's super legit. That's a definitely legit reason. I mean, it's like we always tell our clients, from the defense side of it, if they've got family that's willing to come in and support them and sit by. I mean, it may dude, perception's everything. I mean, if you've got like a defendant there with nobody there supporting them, I mean, you have to think that is going to resonate with jurors. They're sitting in the same room with everybody else, and they're like, okay, this dude, like, he's got nobody. What does that mean?
Particularly in this case, I tweeted about this, and I'm really fascinated to see what happens. Donna Adelson, if her husband doesn't show, which, Donna and Harvey didn't show for Charlie. Wendy only showed to testify for Charlie. She sure as hell, Wendy, I know for a fact, ain't sitting there every day for her parents. So that's but that's a little separate. But I'm just so curious to see if her husband is going to be, and if he doesn't, that's just so interesting to me.
Yeah, that is fascinating. And it's like in terms of Donna and Harvey, like, that just speaks volumes.
Right.
Like, what parents aren't there supporting their kid who's, potentially going away for the rest of his life? Says a lot. When they're taking a hard pass. Okay, so
by the way, it is up. I don't know if you have an eye on it. It is
I've got it on.
They haven't started yet.
Immediately we've got Pocket. It's a Hot Pocket Judge. You'll see.
Judge Jim Gaffigan, folks.
It's totally
Oh, it's starting. It's starting.
All right, I'm firing it up.
I think people are going to like.
We're back on the record in State of Florida versus Ashley Christina Benefield, 2020 CF 3014. It's Tuesday morning.
Yep.
We're getting ready to begin the first trial with preliminary instructions and opening statements, and then we'll start with the calling of witnesses. They're bringing the jury up right now. State, is there anything we need to cover before we bring them in?
No. Yes. It's not really. I'm sorry.
Can you
jury
flip us like a TJ Cancer mug?
For redactions and
I got it.
There he is.
Transcripts. I shouldn't find them, Judge, but they're.
I had both of those.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I prepared them in case you needed one. Thank you.
Anything before we bring the jury in?
Not before opening statements. I do want to alert the court that we want the opportunity to address Your Honor on some of the witnesses that the state intends to call this morning before they actually testify.
Oh boy.
All right. So it would probably be better to do that now, I would think. Otherwise, I'm going to have to send the jury out. We'll have argument. Then we'll call the witness. Then I send them out. Each time you're going to make argument.
Sure. Whatever the court's preference is. So what we have worked out between the parties, Your Honor, is that we're going to provide the other side with a list of the witnesses that we respectively intend to call for the next day of trial. So pursuant to that informal agreement, we received yesterday a list by the state of several witnesses that they intend to call today. I don't know that it's in any particular order, but one of them is Tommy Benefield, another is Eva Benfield, and Alicia Benefield, Fires rather, and several others. And we have some concerns that we want to raise with the court before the witnesses actually testify, to everything ranging from relevance. For example, Your Honor, Eva Benefield, with all due respect to her having lost her father, we do not see anything that she has to say that is relevant to this inquiry. We took her deposition and we concluded that was clearly the case. as to a witness such as Tommy Benefield, his stand your ground testimony was rife with hearsay and information that he did not have personal knowledge of. And of course, we want to preclude that here in the trial. As to some of the witnesses, such as Alicia Byers and Barbara Russell, Your Honor, we believe that the state's intent on calling these witnesses is to go down the child abuse road. We are extremely concerned with that for several reasons, not the least of which is relevance. This is, after all, a homicide trial. We don't want to go down the rabbit hole of chasing whether or not this child was actually abused. We don't think it has any relevance. It's completely collateral to the charges that Ms. Benefield is on trial for. And most importantly, perhaps, on the 403's analysis, we firmly believe and we fear. We don't know that it will inure to our detriment any more than it might inure to the state's detriment, but raising the issue of child abuse is going to confuse this jury. It's going to distract their attention from the ultimate issue for which we're here, which is whether or not this shooting was justified. We acknowledge that Ms. Benfield was responsible for the shooting. All that's left is either self-defense or it wasn't. And if we go down that rabbit hole, we fear that it's going to create issues in the minds of the jurors that they're going to wonder, for the same reason that Your Honor concluded Kimberly Griffith really had nothing relevant to add. The court, we believe, has staked out, if you will, the admissible parameters, that being specifically what law enforcement did as it relates to this. And they indeed intend to call Deputy Morgan, for example, who was the deputy that accompanied the CPT team in some of these interviews. But we feel that if it gets into
Who's
the
that guy?
substance of those statements, it's going to create problems for all of us.
See that guy?
I missed him.
Substance of what
The guy
statement?
with the stringy long hair and the
Whether or
tie
not
in the
there was
gallery.
Oh, I did see that guy. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. He looks,
Allegations of child abuse. That was never resolved.
so, have you, like, when you and Allie did the motion to dismiss based on stand your ground, did this come up? Have there been allegations that she was abusing her daughter?
That
you're
I did.
aware of?
From what we covered, I didn't see that. So
Because I can guarantee you, if it was Doug that had been alleged to have been abusing the daughter, the defense attorney wouldn't be standing up arguing that it's 403 stuff, which means it's not relevant, it's more prejudicial than it is probative. So it's interesting.
for folks who watched us when we covered the Daisy trial, as you could see right off the bat, we're gonna have a much more vigorous defense here. This is not like that case. This is like they even have a Bob. Did you notice they even have their own master baits? That guy behind her is their own little AV guy. So they're
I
ready
did
to
notice
ready to
that.
go.
He's substantially larger than Master Bates. He's got that Chris Farley down by the river, fat guy, little desk thing going. Maybe, I don't know.
But they have their own guys. This is like a, obviously it's a legit case, but like just compared to Daisy where they were just putting in the motions, this guy is ready to go, and it's gonna get spicy.
It's surprisingly the gallery's pretty empty right now. I anticipate.
Well, on the other side, it's a little more. Well, I guess it could be more packed on their side, but the other side,
she's got I know the one gal behind the lawyer looks like she was given some like real like upper stink eye. It was like the upper stink eye. It wasn't the side eye. It was like upper. She was
upper decker stink eye.
Yeah, some shit like that. All right, let's see what's going on.
And I might point out to the court, there were allegations of abuse because of various injuries that the child was returned with, and because of some of the behavior that the child exhibited. But those allegations were not confined in one place. There were two professionals, a pediatrician as well as a psychologist, that were responsible for some of those allegations. We just don't see what possible relevance that could have. And when you balance the probative value of that against the danger of unfair prejudice, again, I'm not sure which side the unfair prejudice is going to be directed at, because I think child abuse is going to raise the eyebrows of every one of those jurors, especially if we have 5 women on the immediate panel. And then they may very well, it's kind of like the atomic bomb, they may very well feel that the state should have done more and hold it against them. I don't know that they will hold it against us if they consider the validity of the allegations. And if they consider the validity of the allegations, Judge
There you
White,
go.
there
Allie
we
made
are.
him yesterday.
We're now litigating whether or not there was any truth and whether or not the child was actually abused. And I think it's going to be a mistake, respectfully.
Thank you. Give the response.
Judge, I do not intend to ask Barbara Russell or Alicia Byers about child abuse or anything like that. That is not why they're being called. So if that was the concern, then there should not be a concern. As for Eva Benfield, she is going to testify just about background, the tenor of this relationship when they first met and that type of thing, which I think is relevant. Also, Tommy Benefield, I recognize he testified to a lot in the stand your ground that may not be relevant at this point. So I have tailored my questions down to just what he saw in her.
Final thoughts?
Yeah, the only thing I would say in response is, as for Eva Benfield, Your Honor, I think she's being called for the sympathy factor, having lost her father. There's nothing about the background and about her being in the house periodically that sheds any relevance on this. We took her deposition. She has no knowledge of any of the specific events. The only thing at best that she can say,
Interesting.
and I think this is why the state's calling her, is it's going to be an effort to introduce an appropriate character evidence of Ms. Benfield. Eva Benfield relates in a couple of incidents in her deposition where Ashley Benefield and her mother, Alicia Byers, spoke with Eva and tried to tell her how dangerous her father was. And of course, being a young girl, or for that matter, just out of a sense of loyalty to her father, which is understandable, she was put off by that. And whether or not that is offered in an effort to portray Ashley Benefield and her mother, Alicia Byers, as mean or spiteful, would really be inappropriate character evidence. And we have not opened that door. And as the court well knows, if that doesn't come in, it's inadmissible till such time as we do. So I don't see respectfully any relevance to that balanced against the sympathy factor. I don't think she's an appropriate witness.
All right. Thank you both very much. Of the 4 names you mentioned, of course, Tommy Benefield testified at the Stand Your Ground hearing. And while I'm sure you both remember that I had a footnote where I mentioned that during the Stand Your Ground hearing, I allowed quite a bit in because as the court, I think I am capable of knowing what's admissible and what's relevant in making a legal determination. So I allowed a lot more in than I would allow in during this trial. And I hinted at that, or I think I actually stated it pretty expressly in one of my footnotes, that just because it came in at the Stand Your Ground hearing does not mean it's coming in at the trial, subject to appropriate objection. The only person that, of the 4 you mentioned, that testified at the Stand Your Ground hearing is Mr. Benefield, Tommy Benefield. And State, I just heard you acknowledge that you understand that a lot of his testimony, like, I'm not going to put a percentage on it, was allowed, that may not be admissible at trial. Eva Benfield did not testify. I don't know the substance of her testimony, what it's going to be. I've heard about a deposition that was taken, so I know you've had the opportunity to at least depose her and speak with her. Alicia Byers. So I had not even heard that name except reading it off of the witness list yesterday. So Alicia Byers is the defendant's mother.
Yes, sir.
And you're calling her.
Yes.
Okay. And then, of course, I know Dr. Russell, we had the hearing with her. All I can say at this point is with kind of generic and non-specifics. I don't feel like there's really any blanket ruling I can put on any of these particular witnesses. What I heard from the defense was hearsay as to Tommy Benefield. That may very well be the case to some of his testimony, lack of personal knowledge, whatever it might be. Eva Benfield is just a general relevance, and I don't know. I haven't even seen her deposition. I haven't had her at a pretrial hearing, so I don't know what her testimony is going to be. So at that point, I can just say object as you see fit. And Ms. Byers and Ms. Russell, I heard some of Ms. Russell's testimony at a prior hearing, but we didn't get into anything about child abuse or allegations of child abuse. And I have no idea what Ms. Byers is going to say. So all I can say is I'm not aware of a ruling I can make at this point other than just to follow the rules of evidence. Before I bring the jury in, I did want to welcome everybody that's in the audience. Please check now to make sure that your cell phones are silent or off. There is no recording, audio or video in the courtroom. You can certainly speak with our media relations folks about how to get into the pool feed, or if you want to take pictures, we certainly have a media room where that can be done. There's not to be any cell phone use in the courtroom. I generally don't get too upset if people or they need to send or receive a text related to work or something like that. That's just fine, just as long as it's not distracting. So that allowance can very well change as the trial goes on. I'll also say with a group this size, it's not uncommon for people to need comfort breaks at various times throughout the case. I would ask if we could keep the in and out to a minimum. It can be distracting to the jury. And as I mentioned to the jury yesterday, I want them 100% focused on the testimony and evidence of this case. So if you can try and take your breaks, step out and come back in whenever we have a break between witnesses, maybe during bench conferences and so forth. I do appreciate it.
Judge, can I raise one other issue? I'm sorry, just as a prophylactic measure, reminding the court.
Prophylactic measure?
Rubber. We have that there should be no reference to a stand your ground hearing. It should instead be referenced to just another hearing, and instruct our witnesses accordingly.
I think we should be clear on that.
Yes, and I instructed my witnesses on that.
Thank you.
All right, nobody's invoked the rule. Are we invoking the rule?
Yes,
Invoking the rule.
actually, that raises one last issue, if I can. I think this has to be an ex parte conversation. Very brief ex parte conversation with the court.
Okay.
Oh,
Sidebar. What's the rule, Bob? What's the rule he's talking about? Do you know?
I don't.
Invoking the rule?
I don't know.
Yeah, folks. So if you see, this is going to be one of those trials where we don't know. They're muting the, sidebars.
So she can hear it through the headphones. So she can hear. I don't know why the state's not up there.
Yeah, that's weird. What's going on?
What did he say exactly about the rule? I was.
He just said, "Is anyone going to invoke the rule?" And they're like, "Yeah," but then her attorney went into something else they had to talk about. So
I mean, it could certainly be the sequestration of certain people in the gallery or the audience. I like how they're calling it the audience now. It's like everybody's on board with the live streaming of trials. It's It's now appointment TV. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's the audience. It's no longer the gallery. We're now going to call the people in the courtroom the audience. I like it. I like it. Makes sense. So it could be that. It could be that. I don't know what it could be. All right, listen. Talk to the people. I got to go get my coffee.
All right. Thanks for being here, everybody. We're going to cover this trial, obviously. I think someone had asked, I believe it's about 10 days this trial should be. Dizzy will correct me if I'm wrong, but 8 to 10 days in that range. So this is not a short one. This is going to be, a couple weeks, it looks like. If you haven't hit that like, please hit it. We appreciate you very much for being here for our newest trial that we are covering. Oh, I want to thank some folks so much. QB Designs, $20 Venmo. Congrats on 20K. Buy you and Bay some Capri Suns. QB, always appreciate your support. Joanne, Jedi, and Mr. Jedi, congrats on 20K with a $20 Venmo. Thank you so much, Joanne and Mr. Jedi. We always appreciate your support. And then Courtney C, $10 Venmo. Come on, Jay. We can't do Read Again without you. Courtney, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Steve. And thank you, everyone, for the kind words. Thank you.
All right, the rule of sequestration has been invoked. If there are any witnesses who are present in the courtroom, you must leave at this point, as you cannot hear the testimony of other witnesses. You should not discuss your testimony or the questions asked of you with any other witnesses until such time as the court has released you from your subpoena or the trial is over and the jury has been discharged. You may talk to the attorneys, but not if other witnesses are present, and the attorneys cannot tell you what other witnesses have said in court. If you violate the rule of sequestration, you could face contempt proceedings, and if found in contempt of court, you could be ordered to pay a fine, serve time in jail, or both. Each attorney is responsible for advising their witnesses that the rule has been invoked and what this means. If you have a witness that prefers or needs to be instructed on the rule from the court, please advise me well in advance of their appearing so the instruction can occur outside the presence of the jury. I will add a caveat to my normal rule of sequestration admonition that I have been made aware that the case, the trial is online. I don't know if it's
What do you
live
mean?
as we're going, or
Dude,
if it's
seriously?
just available online somewhere.
How does he not know
after
this?
the fact. But the rule of sequestration would also prevent witnesses from watching the trial live or watching a recording of the trial. If they're under subpoena, the rule applies to them. Please advise them of such.
And Judge, just to add on to that, we have
Bizarre.
Eva Benfield. They will be the first two witnesses, and pursuant to Marcy's law, I would ask that they be allowed to sit in for the rest of the trial. They may be called as rebuttal witnesses. There's a slim chance, but that would only be if the defendant testifies. So if it pleases the court, if that happens and the defendant testifies, then we can ask them to step out for that testimony. But pursuant to Marcy's law, I believe they have a right to be here after they testify.
Do you want to be heard on that?
It's pretty timely, Your Honor. Equal treatment. That's all I ask.
Pursuant to Florida Statute 90.6162A, D, as in Delta, a witness may not be excluded if the witness is, in a criminal case, the victim of the crime, the victim's next of kin, the parent or guardian of a minor child victim, or a lawful representative of such person, unless, upon motion, the court determines such presence to be prejudicial. Do you want to be heard on that, the last prong?
I think given the fact that they're both going.
What is UCC? People keep saying UC. What is that, Jay?
Oh, that's the Japanese coffee that I drink that revs me up a little bit. I get it with my sushi, and actually Helen Steiner was kind enough to get me a whole thing of it, so that's what I I go on a lot of little tangents when I have that. By the way, Bob, the rule was the rule of sequestration, and he told everyone about that. Good call. The interesting thing is he's like, then he goes, I'm being informed that this case is online. I'm not sure if that means it's live out there now or if people are watching it. I'm like, dude, how do you not know that? So basically he said, you know, people can't be watching the stream either. So
I like it. Oh, by the way, Courtney C sent a $10 Venmo. We have to get Jay in on Reed.
She sent me one too. Thank you, Courtney.
Way to go, Court. Way to go. Love it. Love it. All right, let's see what pocket.
To be called as witnesses, yes, I think it would be prejudicial.
Dude, those eye bags though. Whew, she's not sleeping well. It's not sleeping well.
State.
And Judge, that's why we're calling them first, so they can testify and get their main testimony out of the way before any of the other witnesses testify. And like I said, the only reason they would be called back is as rebuttal to if the defendant testifies. So I think we can solve the problem if the defendant chooses to testify, if we just remove them from the courtroom for that testimony.
All right, the rule is very specific. In a criminal case, the victim of the crime, the victim's next of kin, the parent or guardian of a minor child victim, or a lawful representative of such person. It's the disjunctive, not the conjunctive. So pick one. You can have the victim's next of kin or a lawful representative of such person. Pursuant to Marcy's Law and pursuant to Rule 90.616 D, I don't find that one of their presences would be overly prejudicial. As we usually would, keep them in the back, and it shouldn't be a problem.
What is the statute the court cited?
90.616 2A.
All right.
And of course, if somebody's released from their subpoena, all right. That was a lot for not having any emotions.
Hey,
Ready to go?
Charlene McLaughlin, welcome,
Yes.
welcome,
Yeah.
welcome.
Defense.
Oh,
Okay.
family hug.
Bring the jury.
Bring the jury. I don't think I have the sound effect over here, Jay. So
You don't? I thought you did.
I don't think so.
I'll have to get it on here.
You all can have a seat. We stand for you. All right, you all can have a seat. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. I see some of you brought your jackets and some layers to be comfortable in. So now you get to sit in the nice, comfortable seats as you listen to the testimony. As you notice, those seats do turn and swivel as you need to. I do have some initial instructions before we begin. I do want to ask, though, and again, you're going to get tired of hearing this from me because every time we separate and every time we come apart, I'm going to get some confirmation from you. So did anybody begin deliberations or talking about the case amongst yourselves? Did anybody talk about the case with anybody outside of this group? Or did anybody do any research on the people, places, things, or legal topics we've heard anything about? All right, everybody says no. Thank you very much for honoring those very important traditions.
Thank you all for lying about that.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have been selected and sworn as the jury to try the case of the state of Florida versus Ashley Christina Benefield. This is a criminal case. Ms. Benefield is charged with murder in the second degree with a firearm. The definition of this crime will be explained to you later. The state's charging document, which is called an information, is not evidence and is not to be considered by you as any proof of guilt. It is my responsibility to explain the law to you. It is your solemn responsibility to determine if the state has proved its accusations beyond a reasonable doubt against Ms. Benefield, in accordance with the law that I will give you at the end of the case. Thus, the province of the jury and the province of the court are well defined, and they do not overlap. This is one of the fundamental principles of our system of justice. Before proceeding further, it will be helpful if you understand how a trial is conducted. At the beginning of the trial, the attorneys will have an opportunity, if they wish, to make an opening statement. The opening statement gives the attorneys a chance to tell you what evidence they believe will be presented during the trial. What the lawyers say is not evidence, and you are not to consider it as evidence. Following the opening statements, witnesses will be called to testify under oath. They will be examined and cross-examined by the attorneys. Documents and other exhibits also may be produced as evidence. After the evidence has been presented, the court will give you the initial instructions on the law. The attorneys will then have an opportunity, if they wish, to make closing arguments to you. Following the closing arguments by the attorneys, the court will conclude by giving you the final jury instructions. After the final instructions are given, you will then retire to the jury room to consider your verdict. You should not form any definite or fixed opinion on the merits of the case until you have heard all of the evidence, the argument of the
I'm always
lawyers,
trying to tell
and the
people.
instructions on the law by me.
My
Until
main
that
message
time,
today,
you should
my
not
main
discuss the
message.
case amongst yourselves. Your verdict must be based solely on the evidence or the lack of evidence and the law. I now instruct you not to communicate with anyone, including your fellow jurors, about this case. No communication includes no emailing, text messaging, tweeting, blogging, or any other form of communication.
Don't
Do not
blog it.
research about the case
No
or look up
blogging
any
or
information about
blogging
the
for that
case.
matter.
If
The
you
poor
become aware
bloggers
of
on
any
that jury are
violation
so bummed
of any
right
of
now.
these
And
rules
the
at all,
bloggers.
notify court personnel, one of the
Blog
deputies,
with a V.
or myself of that violation. During the trial, the court may take recesses and you will be permitted to go about your personal affairs. During these recesses, you must not discuss the case with anyone, nor permit anyone to say anything to you or in your presence about this case. If anyone attempts to say anything to you or in your presence about this case, tell him or her that you are on the jury trying the case and ask that person to stop. If he or she persists, leave that person at once, and you are to immediately report that matter to the court deputies who will advise me. You cannot use any cell phones, tablets, laptops, or other electronic devices in this courtroom. If you have an electronic device with you, please turn it off or silence it while we are in court. You may use these devices throughout the trial and during recesses, but even if then you may not use your cell phone or electronic device to find out any information about the case or communicate with anyone about the case or the people and places involved in the case. Do not take photographs, video recordings, or audio recordings of the proceedings or your fellow jurors. At the end of the case, while you are deliberating, you must not communicate with anyone outside of the jury room. If someone needs to contact you in an emergency, the court will receive messages and deliver them to you without delay. I previously gave you my business card, which has my judicial assistant's direct line. If someone needs to contact you in an emergency, my judicial assistant will notify the clerk or myself, and then we'll handle the situation as necessary. Was everybody able to give that information to whoever may need it?
Yes.
All right. If not, make sure you do so. This case must be tried by you only on the evidence presented during the trial, in your presence, and in the presence of the defendant, the attorneys, and myself. Jurors must not conduct any investigation of their own. This includes reading newspapers, watching television, or using a computer, cell phone, the internet, any electronic device, or any other means at all to get information related to this case or the people and places involved in this case. This applies whether you are in the courthouse, at home, or anywhere else.
You must not visit places mentioned in the trial or use the internet to look at maps or pictures to see any places or people discussed during the trial. Jurors must not have discussions of any sort with friends or family members about the case or the people and places involved in the case. Do not let even the closest family members make comments to you or ask questions about the trial. As I said yesterday, make me the bad guy and tell them you are under very strict orders from the court. You can't talk about it. You can't hear about it. You can't discuss it until this case is over and you're released from your obligations. In this age of electronic communication, I want to stress again that just as you must not talk about this case face to face, you must not talk about or communicate about this case using phones, computers, or other electronic devices. Do not send or accept any messages related to this case or your jury service. Do not discuss this case or ask for advice by any means at all, including posting information on an internet website, chat room, or blog. What are the reasons for these rules? These rules are imposed because jurors must decide the case without distraction and only on the evidence presented in this courtroom. If you investigate, research, or make inquiries on your own, I have no way to make sure that the information you obtain is proper for this case. Likewise, the parties have no opportunity to dispute or challenge the accuracy of what you find. This is contrary to our judicial system, which guarantees every party the right to ask questions about and challenge the evidence being considered against it and to present argument with respect to that evidence. Any independent investigation by a juror unfairly and improperly prevents the parties from having these opportunities that our judicial system guarantees. Any juror who violates these restrictions jeopardizes the fairness of these proceedings, and a mistrial could result that would require the entire trial process to start over. A mistrial is a tremendous expense and inconvenience to the parties, the court, and the taxpayers. If you violate these rules, you may be held in contempt of court and face sanctions such as serving time in jail, paying a fine, or both. In every criminal proceeding, a defendant has the absolute right to remain silent. At no time is it the duty of a defendant to prove her innocence. From the exercise of a defendant's right to remain silent, a jury is not permitted to draw any inference of guilt, and the fact that a defendant did not take the witness stand must not influence your verdict in any manner whatsoever. The attorneys are trained in the rules of evidence and trial procedure, and it is their duty to make all objections they feel are proper. When an objection is made, you should not guess or speculate on the reason why it has been made. Likewise, if I sustain or uphold an objection, you must not guess or speculate on what might have occurred had the objection not been sustained, nor what a witness might have said had he or she been permitted to answer. During the trial, it may be necessary to confer with the attorneys out of your hearing to discuss matters that require consideration by me alone. It is impossible to predict when such a conference may be required or how long it will last. When such conferences occur, they will be conducted so as to consume as little of your time as is necessary for a fair and orderly trial of the case. Many times these conferences will occur at my bench where the attorneys will approach, we'll have a conversation, and it'll be done. But sometimes the matters that we need to discuss more in depth, it's just much easier if I excuse you back to the jury room. The attorneys stay at their desks where they have all their materials, and we have more of a normal conversation. So either way that it happens, please rest assured that we will address those matters as quickly as possible in order to have that fair and orderly trial of the case. You are permitted to take notes during the trial, and you have been provided with a notepad and a pen for use to take those notes. Any notes that you take will be for your own personal use. However, you should not take them with you from the courtroom. During recesses, the court deputy will take possession of your notes and will return them to you when we reconvene. After you have completed all of your deliberations and you are discharged, the court deputy will deliver your notes to me. They will be destroyed. no one will ever read your notes. If you take notes, do not get so involved with note-taking that you become distracted from the proceedings. Your notes should only be used as aids to your memory. Whether or not you take notes, you should rely on your memory of the evidence, and you should not be unduly influenced by the notes of other jurors. Notes are not entitled to any greater weight than each juror's memory of the evidence. Before I go too far, I see you all have your pads. If you haven't already taken the cap off, test the pen. Just make sure it works.
Wow, he is a diligent judge, making sure all the pens work. Make sure that you have enough pieces of paper for your note taking. This woman's deep in prayer right now. Oh God, when are these instructions going to be over? Let's keep rolling. So,
all right,
go.
I was
What
going to say
you
real
wanna
quick before you unpause it. We thank you all for being here. It's a new trial, so we always say because it gets in the algorithm, and maybe new folks like you maybe once were find out about the stream. But what I wanted to say is, like, me and Bob don't really have like commercials or advertising on YouTube, so you guys are like our word of mouth. So if you're in like a true crime Facebook group or Twitter, or you just have like a group of people that would enjoy our coverage, please let them know. Have them come on down.
Such a great point. And it's like, you know, I started the podcast 3 years ago and some change at this point. And, you know, I didn't have any money to dump into marketing. You guys, like the listeners of the pod, and of course our subs and our fam here, you guys are everything for us marketing this thing. We cannot, like, you would not believe how huge you guys are to us. Like, just one mention somewhere. We've seen so many people, and we love, like, Jay and I like lose our minds when like you guys will hit us up in the chat and be like, "Oh yeah, I told my sister about you. Now my sister and I are both watching it." It's like, for Jay and I, it's the coolest thing. Like the concept that like people are like sitting on their couch or laying in bed watching us is awesome.
It really is.
Allie and I were watching I forget, some law tube stream when we were like on vacation somewhere. We're like, are we all huge like this on people's TV? Allie starts, she's like, I wonder if I look good. I'm like, you look beautiful. Calm down. But yeah, no, you guys, we really, really do appreciate when you guys spread the love, and it really, really does help grow the show. So yeah, that's a great, great point, Jay. And before we jump into it, I know you guys want to get back to these riveting instructions, but Data Funk, interesting question. DD Podcast, quick. I'm 42 years old and have recently closed my business after my wife was diagnosed with cancer. I'm so sorry to hear that, Data.
So sorry.
I have decided to go back to school to obtain a law degree. Am I crazy? No, you're not crazy. I mean, I did a complete life pivot at 50 years old, Data. So no, I mean, just prepare yourself for some heavy duty loans from law school. Like that, like that's the part you have to kind of like balance if you want to take on a huge amount of debt, because law school is not cheap. It's been a long time since I was there, but I mean, even when I was in law school, it was 100,000 and change to go to 3 years of law school. So just kind of think of that side of it. And also it kind of depends on what you want to do. You know, like what kind of is your goal ultimately. You could probably, you know, because we've had paralegals that are every bit as knowledgeable as attorneys that avoid the entire concept of, you know, paying for law school, and they could do basically everything that a lawyer does, except technically you can't give advice. But in terms of research, work in the cases, like if you want to be a trial lawyer, you got to do law school. If you want to be like a contract lawyer, you know, and do it professionally, you got to be a lawyer. But so just put some thought into it. Just don't jump into it. It is a major time commitment. It is a major money commitment. And it's a rough profession. It is, depending on what you want to do. I say it all the time, but it's interesting. But we're certainly very, very sad to hear about your wife, and I hope that you guys are able to fight through that, especially her. So our thoughts are with you there.
And if you don't, I am not a lawyer, but at 43, I did a complete change too. So there's always
Yep.
time to do whatever you put your mind and energy into it. And we're thinking about your wife, send positive vibes, and thanks for being here.
100%.
All right, everybody's good. Now, if you are a prodigious note taker like I am and you run out of paper, let us know. We've got boxes and boxes of paper for you if you need them. And if your pen starts running out, just hold it up, shake it for us, let us know. We'll get you know them. We got boxes of them. All right. Oh, also, I don't have them right here. If at any point during the trial you have a difficult time hearing someone, maybe it's soft-spoken, maybe they're far away, whatever it might be. If you have any difficulty hearing, just give one of the deputies the universal sign. Remember the old Carol Burnett? Anybody?
Yeah.
Okay, a couple. Give the universal sign and we can get you those headphones. Like I said, they're piped into all of these microphones and makes it really easy to hear. It'll help a lot.
Bob, are you
Also,
talking? You're muted, Bob. Bob,
some
you're muted.
trials we have,
I know the
there's
Carol Burnett
quite a
pull
few
your earlobe.
observers. It's a public courtroom, and
I'm old.
sometimes there's not a whole lot of observers. So there's going to be people going in and out of the courtroom throughout this trial. That's just fine. It can be distracting when that door opens a lot. I'm going to ask that you do everything you can to set aside those distractions and focus right here. This is the witness stand where the testimony is going to come from. And then, of course, the attorneys will be introducing and showing you any exhibits that are introduced into evidence. So the best you can, keep your focus. The attorneys will now have the opportunity to make an opening statement to you.
Let's go.
Please remember that what the attorneys say is not evidence and should not be considered by you as evidence. However, it is important to listen as this is their chance to tell you what they believe the evidence will be in this case. State.
All right. Game on.
Here we go.
This case is about a woman who very early on in her pregnancy decided she wanted to be a single mother.
Wow.
And she did not want the father of this child to have any visitation, her husband. And everything she did from that point on was to attain that goal. And she would stop at nothing to attain that goal. She tried several things in the system that you'll hear. The courts, law enforcement, Department of Children and Families, no one got on her side. And at the end, when there was no other option, she shoots him and kills him and claims self-defense. Now, this couple, Doug Benefield and Ashley Benefield, were married. They had moved to Florida from South Carolina. They lived together in South Carolina. Now, when they lived down here in Florida, in Bradenton, they did not live together. Obviously, there were issues. Doug Benefield lived in his own apartment. Ashley Benefield lived with her mother, Alicia Byers, in a home with their daughter once she gave birth. She had this daughter who at the time was a toddler when she shot Doug. While they were living separate, they were still interacting with each other with the goal, the apparent goal of seeking reconciliation, reconciling this family and becoming a family. They were going to restaurants. They were going to Selby Gardens. They were hanging out at the pool at Doug Benefield's apartment complex. By all images, they looked like they were trying to reconcile. The problem was that is not what Ashley Benefield wanted. Although that's what she was portraying, that's not what she wanted. At the time that this shooting happened, they were planning to move to Maryland. Ashley's mother had inherited a home in Maryland, and they were going to move to Maryland. Doug was also going to move to Maryland. They were going to continue to live separate and continue to attempt to reconcile, but they were all going to move to Maryland together. Excuse me. At the time that this happened, everybody was in moving mode. There were boxes everywhere, furniture, beds upended. They had a U-Haul that they were using together. They had a pod that was in the defendant's driveway that they were putting all of their things into. And every day around this time, Doug Benefield was going to Ashley's home to assist her in putting these things into the pod, putting these things into the U-Haul, because the plan was that they were all going to pack up in the next few days and move to Maryland. And it continued to try and work on their relationship. The problem was Ashley Benefield knew that this was a ruse. She didn't intend to reconcile. She didn't intend to try to make this work. And the problem was there was a court hearing on September 30th of 2020. And at that court hearing, all of this was going to come out. It was going to come out that she was acting one way when she was by herself, and she was acting another way when she was with Doug Benefield. That she was telling him she wanted to work on things, that she wanted to get this marriage back together. But yet when separate, she was saying she had absolutely no intention of reconciling, did not want him around, and did not want this to work. On the 30th of September, this was going to come out. On the 27th of September, she shoots him and kills him. 3 days before this hearing and 3 days before this information was to become public. Now, there was no one else at the house at the time of the shooting. It was just Doug and Ashley. While Ashley's mother and child lived there, they had gone to the park. As soon as Doug got to the house, Alicia Byers takes her granddaughter and they go to the park. So the only people at the house are the defendant and the victim. And you're going to hear three very important things about this shooting. Number one, Ashley Benefield was the only person that was armed. It was her gun. She had it from before. It's not like she took it away from Doug. It was her gun. And Doug Benefield was not armed. He had no gun, no knife, no club, no weapon of any kind. Number two, Ashley Benefield was not injured. Law enforcement took pictures of her right after the shooting. And then again, you'll hear in a few days, they took more pictures. Because sometimes law enforcement, they know that bruises sometimes don't show up right away, that it takes several days for these bruises to show up. So they took pictures several days later. And you'll see those pictures and you'll see that Ashley Benefield is not injured. She has some very superficial scratches on her midsection. Who knows where they came from? She had cats in the house, but who knows? But this is the only injury to her. And the third thing is the trajectory of the fatal bullet. Now, he was shot multiple times, but one of the bullets was fatal. The trajectory of that bullet was side to side. It was not straight on. Doug Benefield was not facing her, coming at her at the time that the fatal shot was fired. Now, as you go through this trial, it's a lot of information, a lot of timeline, but it's all very important to understand the tenor of this relationship between these two people. And it goes all the way back to when they met, back in 2016. That was the end of August 2016, they meet. They were both involved in some political event and they met. 13 days later, they married. Doug Benefield was 54 years old. Ashley Benefield was 24 years old. So there was a 30-year age gap between the two of them. They knew each other 13 days and they got married. Ashley Benefield was very into the ballet, had been an ex-dancer. Her dream was to start a ballet company. And lo and behold, her husband has the money and the connections to get this done. So he begins and she begins to put this ballet company together. And they do put a ballet company together, but before it can actually take off, it falls apart. Before they're married even a whole year, so in April of 2017, Doug Benefield has his vasectomy reversed
Oh,
because they want a child.
Snip, snap,
Within
snip.
weeks or months of the vasectomy reversal, the defendant is pregnant. So all within a year of being married, they have done a vasectomy reversal, gotten pregnant, started a ballet, and the ballet has crumbled. While Ashley is pregnant, she decides she's too sick from the pregnancy, morning sickness, and that she needs her mother to take care of her. Her mother's in Florida, in Bradenton, Florida. So during her pregnancy, she moves to Bradenton, Florida to live with her mother so her mother can take care of her during the sickness. The two never lived together again. This was the last time these two lived together. They continued a long distance relationship when she first moved to Florida and continued trying to keep it together in communication. But about the same time as the ballet collapses, right about all of this time, Ashley Benefield starts complaints against the victim. Her complaints are things like, the main one was that Doug Benefield was poisoning her with heavy metals, and her unborn child was being poisoned, that there was poison in her tea, that he was giving her poison. There were also other complaints, domestic violence complaints, different types of complaints, but not once will you hear that she ever said he hit her. Not once did she ever say he choked her, kicked her, anything like that. Even though she's making these complaints, the victim, Doug Benefield, is still trying to make this work. And you're going to see some text messages and hear some things. He's still trying to make this work. But she is having none of it. So at about the time that she's ready to give birth, Doug Benefield contacts an attorney here in Florida, Sarasota, Florida, Stephanie Murphy, and asks her to help. And asks her to help him write a letter to her, to Ashley Benefield, to state that he wants to be a part of the birth and he wants to be a part of this child's life and to please keep in contact with him. Ashley never answers that letter. That letter is sent via email on March 15th of 2018, which was several weeks early. She wasn't due yet. And the next day, she is induced, her pregnancy is induced, and she gives birth to a daughter. She never tells Doug. He doesn't even know his child is born for weeks. And she never responds to the letter. The way that Doug knows that this child is born is that Ashley Benefield starts filing complaints again. And based on these complaints, he figures out, oh, my child's born. And now we have more complaints. The complaints revolved around the poisoning and the things that I talked about earlier. And she filed for what's called a violation of injunction, or I'm sorry, she filed for an injunction. An injunction is our legal way of saying restraining order. So when someone wants a restraining order, they have to go through a process and go to court, and the court has to decide, and you get a restraining order. So that was her process. She was trying to get a restraining order against Doug, and the allegations were what I said to you. At the same time, Doug Benefield had not seen his child, had not met his child. So he did a cross complaint to say, please let me have contact with my child. I've never even met my child. So this was set for a hearing. And it ended up going 2 days. It was long. It was a long process, a lot of witnesses in family court. And it ended up going 2 days. It began in July 30th, 2018, and it finished on September 17th, 2018. And at the conclusion of that hearing, the judge said, no. No, you are not getting a restraining order, and no, you cannot keep this man away from his child. Mm-hmm. And granted Doug Benefield immediate visitation with his daughter. He met his daughter for the first time. She was 6 months old. And at the time, when they were exchanging custody, which was at the sheriff's office for meeting the child, all of this animus had been going on. I mean, they had just had these hearings and all of this. And at that first time sharing, that's what they call it nowadays in family courts, time sharing. At the first time sharing, Ashley starts becoming very nice to Doug and says, basically, I'll go with you for the visitation. And that's what they do. The family goes off for visitation. And that begins a year, approximately a year, of basically them working on the relationship, going out to restaurants, doing things, hanging out together as a family. About a year. Now, Doug never moves in with Ashley. He keeps a separate residence. But after almost a year, so around August of 2019, Ashley just stops talking to him. Just stops. And that's about the time Doug files for divorce. He finally says, okay, we're getting a divorce. Then what you'll hear is that the defendant started a whole new set of complaints. You will hear that she was involved in 5 different complaints, all revolving not around her this time, but about the child. Because now Doug has visitation with the child. So now these allegations are that Doug's abusing the child. And the allegations are that Doug's abusing the child. What you'll hear is that not one of these charges was ever prosecuted. Not one of these charges ever left law enforcement. So the defendant now has tried these 5 complaints after Doug filed for a divorce. Law enforcement's not helping her. No one has said that Doug cannot see this child. So there's still visitation going on. And in this meeting of all these people, it was decided that Doug and Ashley Benefield will go for a psychological evaluation. So they do. And they go to Dr. Broder, and Dr. Broder does a very extensive psychological evaluation. And he meets with them together. He meets with them separately. He meets with them with the child, whose name is Emerson, by the way. She's a little girl. And at the time of the shooting, she was about not yet 2 years old. During this evaluation, and what you'll hear from Dr. Broder is that Ashley Benefield acted very different when she was with Doug and when she was not with Doug. When she was with Doug, it was, we're moving to Maryland, we're going to work on our relationship, we're going to try and make this family work. When she's not with Doug, she's saying, no way, no how, I do not want this, I don't want to reconcile with him. And to Doug's knowledge, all he's hearing is, I want to reconcile. So that's what he knows. That report was coming out at that hearing on September 30th, 2020. So September 30th, 2020, Ashley knew the ruse was up. Now, there had to be a request from both sides, the husband and the wife, to release this psychological report. And at one point before the hearing, Ashley Benefield tried to get Doug to drop that so the report would not get out, would not be released. Doug refused. So that report was coming out on the 30th, and on the 27th, she kills him and claims self-defense. Now, you're probably going to hear a lot of information about Doug Benefield. Probably some negative things, not so nice things. I would just ask you to remember who's saying them and why. Just because someone speaks words does not make it true. So use your common sense as you go through this trial. This is a long story with a lot of information, but you'll see that this was a custody battle that this mother was going to win at all costs. And the cost was the life of Doug Benefield. And that is murder. Thank you.
So what'd you think?
she started off strong, I thought, with that opening statement where she wanted to be a single mom or whatever, but she kind of lost me a little bit in the middle. What did you
Yeah,
think? I don't know.
it's like same. Like I fully anticipate this defense attorney to turn right around and use the, them's just words.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
I
yeah,
mean,
just like what they're saying.
remember what she said about everything that them's just words, just because people says it, say it doesn't make it true. I fully anticipate the defense attorney. So, I mean, I was expecting to hear more about messaging that was going on in terms of her kind of drawing Doug to the house that night. I get the kind of the duplicitous type thing, saying one thing when she's with Doug and saying something completely different with the other. I mean, like if they're going with battered spouse syndrome or something of that nature, that kind of adds up though. You know what I mean? Like she's obviously, if she is genuinely concerned that this guy is trying to get rid of her or is abusive to her, it would make sense that she's, towing the line when she's with him. So it'll be interesting. I wasn't hearing that catchphrase that you want to hear during openings, which is the evidence will show. The evidence will show. The evidence will show. Because remember, an opening is really supposed to be the jurors, guide map to what the case is going to be and what they can expect to hear during the course of the trial. So I didn't hear a lot of that. I didn't really hear her get into the details of the psych eval. And Jay, I know you went through kind of a bitter divorce and you guys had the kids involved. And like here in Illinois, you got to get that court ordered. And typically the way it works in Illinois, like if we've got one of the spouses saying, okay, the other spouse is full of shit and they're, everything, they're making all this shit up, you've got to pay as the one party for the other party to get the evaluation done.
Right.
It's typically done by, like it was in Florida here, by the same doctor. Both parties will go and they'll both discuss, whatever comes up. They'll answer the doctor's questions because the doctor's trying to figure out if something's going on in terms of, does one or the other of the parents have some kind of mental illness going on? Is there some kind of malingering? Is, you know what I mean? Like, because there's always accusations especially when custody is at stake, of parents just like casting shade, making shit up. I mean, it's like one of the biggest battles, in terms of custody fights, and they can get so ugly, man. It's sorry. So let's see how the defense.
Yeah, well, to your point, Bob, before you start the defense opening, I just want to say, there may be people who are new to us, but me and Bob are big on mental health, and this case is going to have issues regarding domestic violence and abuse, and people who have been through tough divorces with custody battles. So we always say, please, please, please take care of your health. There may be parts we need to take a break. We understand. Come back when, we just want to give you the heads up. And also, I can already see there's going to be different opinions on this. And all we ask is that you just be respectful and just watch how you come at people. Just like, we want to watch this. We want to be open for the evidence, and we appreciate, all viewpoints as long as they're respectful. We appreciate that. So.
Yeah, that's gospel. That's gospel. Just, and this is one of those cases where, even Dizzy, when she was working on our thumbnail, she's like, look, because I think initially we had, justice for Doug Benefield. And like, she's like, I'm going to remove that because, there's people that based on the limited information that all of us have at this point, that firmly are in Ashley's camp. They're like, look, she was an abused woman. This guy was low key psycho, and again, like I said the judge gave the instruction to the jurors. Let's wait. Let's hear what the evidence is. Once that starts coming out, I think hopefully, the hope is always it gives us a better idea of what may have been going on here. This is clearly going to be 100% circumstantial. This case, you're going to have to, the state's going to lay the trail of breadcrumbs for us, and we're going to have to come to the conclusion, yeah, it adds up. It's like you can't, you can't come to any other conclusion other than she was a plotting murderess, so, or not. So let's see what the state has to say.
By the way, I did like the judge.
Or the
No
defense.
hemming and hawing. It was like objection. He was like, boom, overruled, and kept going. I love that.
I love it too. Hot pocket. Okay, let's go.
Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Judge Wright. May I request the clerk to put the screen down?
Fresh bread is delicious and smells delicious too.
Remember when it was like a trend to get those bread machines? My parents got one when I was younger. That bread was good. You made your own bread.
Yeah. What happened to those?
I don't know.
They should never have gone away.
This is the divide between generations. I'm in the old school. I'd like to know that I have a picture and it's reliable. This is the new world. We rely on technology. I'm not sure that I'm a fan.
Wait, is this the opening?
Yeah, I think so.
Wait, he's starting with caveman lawyer shit?
I don't know. Is he, or is he just like waiting?
I don't understand your modern world.
All right, there we go.
Oh, I guess he's waiting.
I
All right. I thought it was the opening.
Digitally.
I really did.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, all right.
This is Douglas Benefield. He was 58 when Ashley Benefield was forced to shoot him. Can I see the second picture, please? I want you to note how he's built for a 58-year-old man. Now, despite being raised by a family who taught me that it was ill to speak about the dead in an unflattering sense, I'm going to have some strong words about Douglas Benefield, the alleged victim in this case. I say alleged.
No, Estrella, if you're late, the state just went. So the state just finished their opening. Defense is just starting. If you're new to, if you're just jumping in, the state has already given their opening statement, and the defense is just now starting theirs.
Victim because he was anything but that. The evidence is going to show that Douglas Benefield was a very disturbed man. Of that, I assure you, you'll have no doubt when the case is over. 30 years older than Ashley, he was obsessed with her, and he successfully portrayed himself as everything he was not in an effort to win her hand in marriage. Despite promoting himself as a religious, honorable, and decent human being, Doug Benefield was a manipulative, cunning, and abusive man who absolutely insisted on control. Among other things, you're going to learn during this trial that over the course of this 4-year relationship, Douglas Benefield did the following. He fired a handgun into the ceiling of their kitchen on an occasion to stop Ashley from talking. He threw a loaded gun at Ashley. He punched their dog in the face so hard that he knocked the dog unconscious. He regularly carried a concealed firearm that was racked, meaning pulled back and ready to fire. He unlawfully placed a tracker on Ashley Benefield's vehicle. He was regularly observed following Ashley Benefield in her car, driving in Manatee and Sarasota counties, despite the fact that he was living in South Carolina, having driven all the way just to tail her. He was caught by a neighbor at night, standing in the neighbor's backyard in an effort to peer into Ashley's house. He punched numerous holes in the drywall of their home when they lived together in South Carolina. And he had a previous marital history of domestic violence. Ashley Benefield was painfully aware of all of this on September 27th, 2020, the day of the homicide. And I want to assure you that this is not going to come to you from just one place. These are acts that were admitted by Douglas Benefield himself. Ashley Benefield feared him. That was no secret, ladies and gentlemen. She left him a letter when she moved out 3 years prior to the homicide, detailing how scared she was of him because of all of these acts. She feared for herself and for her unborn child. 3 years before the shooting. She left him. He pursued her. She rejected him. He would not take no for an answer. She at times despised him. He did not care. She moved to get away from him. He followed her. She decided to go to Maryland. Surprise. He decided to go to Maryland as well. She belonged to him. He had the right to be with her, and no less than God decided that to be the case. Doug Benefield viewed Ashley Benefield as his property. Abusers seek to control their victims, to dominate them. At times, the pressure that Doug Benefield exerted and brought to bear upon Ashley Benefield was so overwhelming that it sometimes triggered questionable suspicions in Ashley's dedicated effort to protect herself and her child. Domestic violence victims have several things in common. Number one,
An argument, Judge?
Ooh.
Number one, they initially believe things will get better. Instead, they get worse. Number two, domestic violence victims develop a get along, go along attitude. It's the mentality because appeasement keeps the beast at bay. Just do what he wants and you'll be safe. These domestic violence victims constantly speak about walking on eggshells. And the reason they describe it like that is for fear of anything that they say may trigger a reprisal by the abuser. And if children are involved, everything is magnified. They become hyper-vigilant. Ashley Benefield developed all of those characteristics. So on 9/27/2020, the day of the homicide, Doug arrives at the residence of Ashley Benefield. And as you heard, they are living separately. He does not live there. He never resided there. This is at her home in Bradenton. He had no claim for entering that home on that day, except with the permission of Ashley, which she gave on that day because she was moving to Maryland and Doug was going to Maryland as well. But he knew, make no mistake, as the prosecutors told you, Doug Benefield knew full well on that day that this relationship was over. They were not going to be living together. Maybe, hopefully, they could work out some type of co-parenting agreement, but she was done. So how does that day's events unfold? What happens that results in us all assembling here this morning? It starts, ladies and gentlemen, with Doug Benefield once again seeking control. He is simmering when he arrives at Ashley's home on that afternoon. Why is he simmering? He's on a slow boil, actually, because he knows that Ashley's moving. He knows that this relationship is over. And immediately there's a discussion about how they should pack the belongings, with Ashley taking the position that her belongings should be packed last. Why? Because Ashley's things are going to be unloaded first. And Doug will then continue on to wherever it is that he was going to reside. So, this is the most vulnerable time for a domestic violence victim, when the abuser recognizes that he's about to lose her. So what's his response to this? All right, classic tactics of an abuser, they are threats and intimidation on this afternoon as the two of them are trying to pack this U-Haul and this pod. In an effort to avoid confrontation with him, Ashley says after a short while, gee, I'm really pretty exhausted. Why don't we stop for the day? We can finish tomorrow. Doug ignores it. His response is to grow increasingly aggressive and hostile. Not once, but twice, Doug body checks Ashley. And by body check, I mean he passes her in the hallway, slams his shoulder into her shoulder, almost knocking her over. That's not enough. The next thing is, as they're passing in a hallway, he's carrying a cardboard box. He jams the cardboard box into Ashley's side, which leaves scratches that the police photographer took. Again, now fearing for her safety because she sees how he is escalating in his behavior, she tries to persuade him, look, let's finish for the day. It's getting late. I'm tired. No go. Instead, Doug bellows, I know what you're doing. You're trying to get me to leave. I'm your husband, and I can spend the night if I want to. Well, that was enough for Ashley. She heads for the front door of the house to leave. Doug chases up to her, grabs her by the arm or hand, and spins her around so that his back is to the front door, blocking her from leaving. And he yells right in her face, where do you think you're going? Ashley, desperate at this point, Doug yells, "You can't leave me." Ashley somehow finds the strength to summon up the nerve to say, "I am done. You need to leave now." She commands him to leave the home. Terrified, while in his grasp, because he spun her around, his response is to smack her upside the head. And you'll see the pictures of her swollen face and her eye. And he yells, "I am not done." Fearing for her life, as this was the first time that he had actually struck her. Up till then, it was always threats and intimidation. As intimidating as firing a gun may be to get you to stop speaking, he had never actually hit her. He'd pushed her. This time he struck her. Terrified after this, fearing for her life, she heads for her bedroom where she has a firearm. She gets to the firearm. She turns around. She orders Doug to stop. When she looks up, he's in the doorway. Instead of seeing the gun and leaving, Doug gets into this warrior pose with his arms moving purposely and advances. At that point, petrified, she fires, believing that if he gets a hold of her, she will be either seriously injured or killed. To her horror, after firing, he continues to advance. She absolutely panics. She tries to get away and backs to the side to create more distance between them, but there is no place left for her to go in this small bedroom. At that point, in utter panic, she keeps firing the gun. She sees Doug's legs go up in the air, almost as if he was running and slipped, and he falls backwards. Instinctively, she flees the house and heads next door to John Sant's house. He's a neighbor. When all is said and done, ladies and gentlemen, and the testimony and the evidence is complete, the only thing that's going to have been established here beyond a reasonable doubt is that Douglas Benefield was a violent abuser. Ashley Benefield's efforts to placate him was absolutely consistent with what abused women do, especially when a child is involved, and that Ashley's result and resource to deadly force was absolutely justified under the circumstances. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Judge, can we approach?
Yes. Are we done for this, for the presentation for now?
Yes.
Wow. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think he did it. In my opinion, he did a better job than the prosecution. But you know, again, this is all just their opening, statements. I'm waiting for this evidence and see what proof they have here. But it'll be interesting to see what's going to come out here.
No doubt. I mean, they both set it up. You've got that both sides of the coin thing going on. I mean, I've seen it. I've represented women that have been in these relationships, and the amount of gaslighting that goes on, the amount of abuse that goes on, and it's like these women in this situation, are mortified that the courts won't believe them, that people in general don't believe them. And it's you've got to understand that abusers that are chronic domestic violence abusers are smart enough to not do shit that's going to be perceptible to the public. You know, I mean, like when you have lunatics that are punching, their spouse or, somebody in the face, giving them black eyes, that's spun out of control. It's the little shit. It's the psychological, the financial abuse, like pinching under the arms, just doing things that are not going to be perceptible to people. And it's just like, it's like mental warfare,
Even like, I was gonna say, like, even just like a continual nonstop messaging or doing stuff on social media or calling, showing up places where there might not have been like a thing, but if someone's following someone, like they talked about a tracker, like this all like abuse is,
I mean, can you imagine? Like, I mean, to be in a position like that where, especially in what is so flies under the radar is the financial abuse, where you've got one one of the components of the relationship, one of the people in the relationship that has the financial control because they're the breadwinner, and they wield that like a sword. They just like completely can control the movements of the other person. This reminds me so much of a case and a client that I had that I fought so hard for this woman. And it was like, this dude was like, he went pro se, and it was like just a super protracted long, this sounds exactly like the shit that was going on. Now, granted, at this point, we are just at opening statements. So
absolutely.
I am an absolutely like on the fence. I need to hear the evidence. Let's see where this thing, because at this point it's just words. So let's see where the evidence goes. I am certainly open to the fact that this dude was abusing the hell out of her and that this was legitimate. It's like I'm at the advantage of I didn't do the motion to dismiss with you and Allie. So I don't know any of the facts. Like I'm coming into this like completely unformed opinion at all. Don't even have an initial opinion. So I'm just going to be seeing it like boom, like for the first time.
Well, to be fair, Bob, we did both stream it together. You just forgot.
Yeah, exactly. I'm old, dude. Like, are you kidding me? There's no way. I have no recollection of us doing that.
We did the whole hearing.
I have zero recollection of that. So thankfully, my faulty memory has led me to this point where I want to hear all the evidence and see what the hell's going. Yeah,
same. I mean, even though me and Alec, I'm waiting for the evidence in this trial. The pretrial stuff happened. That's fine. I want to see what comes out in the evidence in this trial, and go from there.
I mean, look, dude, like this is a great point. I mean, firing a weapon into the ceiling, I don't give a shit what the circumstances were leading up to that. That's scary.
Yeah.
I don't know how you walk that back. I don't know what the conversation is after the fact to where you're going to make that seem in any way like that's justified. I don't give a shit what you're arguing about. Firing a weapon into the ceiling of a home that you're living in is unhinged.
Oh, true. But Bob, to another person's, because Snappy says I'm out, but sometimes it's not that easy. To another chatter, I forget. Sometimes it's not that easy, folks. That's
where that financial abuse comes into play. Like if you've got, especially in situation and where it really, really happens, because thankfully these days women are able to go out and get jobs at the same rate in terms of employment, still getting screwed on money, but at least they're able to get out of the house. Where we're not talking about the 40s and the 50s where women were trapped, absolutely trapped in these relationships with male breadwinners that, all the bullshit that, barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen, cooking, cleaning, you're a homemaker. You can't, so thankfully we've moved on from that. But still, when you're talking about women that have just given birth, that have like tender age children that are not able to work or are not working because they're rearing the kids in the early years of the kid's life, which I mean, we were lucky that Allie was able to do that for us because we were in a position to be able to do that. Where you want mom to be able to stay with the babies while they're growing up for the first couple of years, like as long as she can, until she's got to go back to work. But in those situations where you've got like this, where she's just given birth, they've got a young child going. And it's like in leading up through the pregnancy, and if she can already sense it, I'm here for it. I am all ears, and I am ready to hear all of it before we form an opinion on this one. That's for sure. Oh, see, we had a little sidebar right there.
Can you do a little blippity blippy?
Blippity blippers. Let's go. Let's see what we got. Boop,
Judge
boop.
Kim Gaffigan is listening.
He is listening. Kids. Let's see. Tiny desk guy. Oh,
did they take a break? Ski.
It looks like it. I think we were a fair amount. Oh, all right. Looks like we might be back on here.
All right, members of the jury, there may be times where it may be a minute or two when witnesses are coming in or we're reconfiguring the courtroom. You're going to spend a lot of time sitting during this trial, so if you want, during these breaks, if you want to stand up, please feel free to do so, kind of stretch a little bit. There's not enough room for yoga poses and calisthenics, but sometimes it just helps to stand up on your feet and move your back a little bit. Please feel free to do that if you need to.
Oh, it's not as far as Judge Newman, who would say to have a standing break, but he lets them know. Well, this is his cousin, I believe. Doug Benefield's cousin.
That's right.
This man is no
I'm going to be
nonsense.
presiding over this case. As the deputy said, just make yourself comfortable in that chair. Get about 12 to 15 inches from that microphone. It adjusts up, down, left, right, however you need it. Speak in a loud, clear voice, we'll hear you.
Yes, sir, I will.
Good morning.
Good morning, Suzanne.
Please state your name.
Tommy Douglas Benefield Jr.
Can you spell those?
Yes, ma'am. Tommie. Middle name Douglas, Douglas. Last name Benefield, Benefield, and Jr.
And what was your relationship to Doug Benefield?
I'm Doug's first cousin.
Okay. How close were you and Doug?
Doug and I were completely attached, connected all the way through his adult life at varying times from daily to semi-annually, certainly quarterly, though a whole entire adult life.
Okay. And how are you employed?
I'm currently employed by a major airline out of Atlanta, Georgia, and I run a flight school or a portion of a flight school in Vero Beach, Florida, 3 days a week. It's a full-time job.
Okay. And were you and Doug close about flying?
Yes, ma'am. He followed me into the Navy. I was a Navy pilot off aircraft carriers, and Doug stayed with me in the months prior to him going into the Navy. He went through aviation officer candidate school, went through flight school, and then flew for 3 years and 2 deployments off aircraft carriers like I did. Same aircraft carrier, USS Nimitz, as a matter of fact.
Okay. How old was Doug Benefield when he died?
All right. He was 5 years younger than me. I'm 68 now. That was 4 years ago. 64. He was 59, I believe.
About how tall was Doug?
5'9", 5'10" at the most.
Approximately how much did he weigh at the time?
My guess is 160, 165. He was slender and fairly small for a man.
Okay. And before Doug moved to Florida, where did he live?
Before he moved.
Before he moved down here to Bradenton, Florida, where did he live?
Okay, I'm sorry. I had to pick a year at that point. I'm sorry. He had a home all the way up until his death in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, just north of Charleston. 701 Preservation Place was the address.
Okay. And he lived at that address before moving to Bradenton, Florida, correct?
Yes, ma'am. And then he rented the house out when he moved to Bradenton for visitation of their daughter.
Okay. And before he met Ashley, who did he live with at the house?
The house for multiple years was Doug, his longtime wife Renee, and their daughter Eva. That's prior to Renee's death in 2015, December of 2015.
Okay. So Renee died in 2015. Do you know how she died?
Yes, ma'am. She died of a undiagnosed heart ailment, cardiac arrest.
Okay. Is,
Hold on.
It's
oh,
not qualified.
Lack of qualifications,
Yes.
overruled on that basis.
was Renee Eva Benefield's mother?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I'm sorry, can you say that date again? Was 2015 that she died?
I believe it's December 2nd, but I may have the day off, but not the month of 2015.
2015. All right. And I want to ask you now, switch to Ashley. So about how long after Renee died did Doug meet Ashley?
9 months.
Okay. When did you first meet Ashley?
I met Ashley in the spring of 2017. I believe the date was either March 14th or April 14th.
And did you know about Ashley before you met her?
No, ma'am.
Okay. How did your meeting come about?
I was flying for Southwest Airlines as a captain at the time. They changed my schedule like they do many times in the airline world. And I ended up not overnighting in Baltimore, Maryland, and they sent me to Charleston, South Carolina. Because I was going to Charleston, I texted Doug and said, hey, I'll be in to Charleston tonight. I'd like to have dinner. And he said, great. Text.
Sustained.
Okay. During your conversations, did he mention the name Ashley?
In the second text chain, which is entered,
Sustained.
I'm asking because,
I can answer the question, ma'am. When I arrived in Charleston, I texted Doug, and his text to me specifically was,
and you can't speak about what Doug said to you,
okay,
but during the text messages, did he indicate to you there was a female involved?
yes, that's the first mention of
This is what Allie's always talking about. When you have this type of situation, the workaround is saying, instead of saying what the text said, just say, as a result of that text, what did you do? So it'll give you the same knowledge in terms of what was texted if you say what happened as a result of the text without saying what the text said.
Ashley to me that we were not going to have dinner at the airport and that I was to take Uber up to Mount Pleasant to meet them.
Okay. And was that at their house?
That was at Doug's house. Yes, ma'am. 701 Preservation Place.
Doug's house at the time. All right. And how long were you with them, the two of them together?
4 to 5 hours. We started at the house. We ended up going back to my hotel, getting a piece of medical technology, medical device that was a master trainer in that device. We had dinner together at a pizza restaurant across from the hotel, and then went back to my room in the hotel, the three of us, and certainly 4 to 5 hours that day.
And during this time, did you have multiple conversations with both of them?
We had conversations about everything, especially about how they met,
Okay.
starting at the house, ending at the hotel.
And what did Ashley say about how they met?
She talked about how they met at a political event, a meeting, where Doug and his business investors were.
Personal knowledge.
Defendant's statement.
Yeah, overruled.
You can go ahead.
Both Ashley and Doug told me about how they met the first night at a political meeting, how Ashley had reached out to him before that meeting, They showed me text messages between them for the 10 days between the first meeting and her second meeting with him up in Charleston, Mount Pleasant. They talked about how they had mutual interest, mutual alignment, how they were looking for the same thing in a relationship. They talked about, Ashley talked specifically about her fibromyalgia and pain associated with her ballet dancing days. Ashley talked about her mother, her upbringing, about her father, about the separation there.
Okay.
Do you have an objection
Yes, sir.
on the basis?
Hearsay.
It's my
defendant's
understanding this is the defendant's statement.
Yes.
Or overruled.
Okay. Let me stop you there. So she said that her and Doug met at a political event.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And at the time that you were meeting with them, were they married?
Yes, ma'am.
Did Ashley indicate to you when they got married or how long they had been married?
Yes, ma'am. 13 days from first meeting.
That they got married 13 days after they met?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did Ashley indicate where they got married?
Yes, ma'am.
And where was that?
That was in Mount Pleasant or Charleston. Doug's best friend at the time, Tripp, married them.
Okay. Did Ashley ever discuss with you that she carried a gun?
Yes.
And what did she say about that?
She said that on their initial meeting, in the political meeting, that she and Doug's traveling partner in business went outside of Secret Service people, and she showed him the gun she was carrying at that event in her bra.
Okay. And she talked to you about this during your meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I want to jump forward a little bit, but did you have any conversations that night about them wanting to have a child? Or was that a different time?
I don't remember us talking about it that first night. No, ma'am.
Okay. Do you remember a conversation with Doug and Ashley, specifically Ashley, about them wanting a child?
I believe it was later in the late spring, the next time that I visited with them.
Okay. And to your knowledge, could Doug have children?
He had had a vasectomy after having his daughter with Renee, his longtime wife.
Did Ashley?
I'm sorry, so no, he
Okay.
couldn't have children.
Did Ashley speak about that in front of you, Ashley and Doug together, or Ashley separate about the vasectomy?
They did when they were discussing having Doug have a vasectomy reversal. Yes, ma'am, I believe so.
All right. And to your knowledge, did that reversal ultimately go through?
Yes, ma'am, and I believe Ashley actually paid for it on a credit card. They talked about that.
Okay. And ultimately, she became pregnant?
Yes, 3 months after the vasectomy reversal, she became pregnant. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did they end up, I'm going to skip a little bit forward now.
Yes, ma'am.
Did they end up having a wedding reception?
They did. I believe it was June of 2017. I was single parenting at the time, and I wasn't able to attend, but it was in Charleston, South Carolina, at the home of one of Doug's business partners.
Okay. You mentioned something about ballet dancing, so I'm going to ask you about that. In your meetings and discussions with Ashley, did she indicate she was interested in the ballet?
She spoke about the fact that she had been a ballet dancer, that she had performed in, I'll call them shows, back, I believe, in Maryland, where she grew up. And by the time that I first met Ashley, they had formed the ballet company called the American National Ballet in Charleston. And they were, at the time that I first met her, they were working on getting that ballet company up and running.
Okay. And was this going to be a large endeavor?
Several $1 million. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Up to 40 dancers were hired. Yes, ma'am. Large endeavor.
Okay. And do you know what Doug's role was in that? In your discussions with Ashley, did you find out what Doug's role was?
Yeah, Doug and Ashley talked about it on the first night I met her, about how they founded the ballet, how Doug did the online limited liability corporation work, founded the name, resurrected that name, how they worked together to try to build a ballet that was diverse and open to more than one body size, body shape, body color. That was the philosophy of the ballet as they explained it. That was Ashley's dream.
And how was it funded?
It was funded several ways. A number of Doug's business partner, friends, and Doug himself invested money. They had a major, let's say, arts benefactor in Charleston, is a personal injury lawyer who was going to be the primary major donor. In Doug's case, Doug was working on very advanced technologies and patents at the time. And in his case, he didn't have any savings or cash in the bank. So he sold his future stock grants and options to other investors to put his own money in, about $100,000 in his case.
So while this ballet was in development or launching, did Ashley ultimately become pregnant? I know you said she became pregnant several months later, but I'm just trying to get a timeline.
Yes, ma'am. So in February of 2017 are the records and what they told me about founding it. I met her in maybe a month or two after that on that Charleston overnight. They held the first ballet event, and I was invited in May of 2017. Once again, single parent, I wasn't able to attend. She got pregnant in July, and we talked about that multiple times. And the next month in August was the large launch, which me, my business partners, my veteran friends, supporters of Doug all went to Charleston for that major launch in August. It was at a place, I'm sorry.
And at that time, was Ashley pregnant in August?
She was pregnant. I don't remember if she knew or not. It was
Okay.
1 month after the pregnancy was Emerson was conceived.
And at some point, did Ashley move away from the South Carolina home?
Yes, ma'am. We had the August ballet big launch. 2 weeks later, Doug moved Ashley down to Ashley's mother's home in Lakewood Ranch. Drove down one day, dropped her off, and drove back the next day. That's late August.
And what was the understanding, what was Ashley's understanding of why she was moving and what was going on?
In text conversations and personal conversations with Ashley.
Defendant's statement.
It's going to be the defendant's statements.
Can we approach her?
Yes.
Approach her. Bob, if you're talking, you're muted.
Dude, yeah, I forget.
You got to get back in the game, Bob.
I know, dude. I'm terrible at that. But I wanted to restate what you had said, Jay, and what Shan's is stating in the chat. Look, this is going to be a tough case. We have a lot of you that I'm seeing in the chat that have survived domestic abuse. You escaped domestic abusive relationships. We want you to take care of yourselves first and foremost. If this gets to be too tough, dip out. You know, if you want to come back in, just this whole trial is going to be this. So all of us just want you guys to be taking care of yourself during this thing, because it could be very, very triggering. And it's going to be a tough trial for, I have a feeling, a lot of people in our chat. Just know that we love you, and just be mindful of yourself and what you're feeling, and take care of yourself in that way. Okay.
Absolutely. And also,
Indeed.
sidebar.
Shut time. Can we get some breakfast hot pockets cooked up, please?
He, by the way, is one of my favorite comedians of all
Oh,
time. I love Jim Gaffigan.
It's so great, man. And it's like I'll listen, like when we're in the car and I'll put on, if I'm like not listening to music, and I'll throw Sirius on and I'll go through like the comedy channels, and it's like, and if I've got Scout, and it's like really, really hard to find like comedians that aren't just dropping like F-bombs every other word. And look, Scout's, she doesn't have virgin ears. I mean, Allie and I are, like, let's be honest, we're swearers. We both have foul mouths. So it's like, and I don't put on airs with my kids. They know how we talk. But like in terms of just being so raunchy, that I'm like, oh my God, it's like, I have to come like bloop, 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 bloop. And then, so anytime I run into like Gaffigan, I always know that it's going to be hilarious, clean, suitable for everybody in the car. Yeah, I love him. I think he's hilarious. It's like, out of the clean comedians out there, it's like you got Seinfeld, you got Gaffigan, I mean, who else is like super clean? That's like,
I like this guy. I don't know if you ever follow this guy, Mike Birbiglia. I think he's very funny.
Love him.
He's great. He tells a story like he's
great.
amazing.
He really is. Who's the dude? I can't remember. So he had a show on Showtime or HBO, and it was about him. Artie Lang was in it. And he was trying to become a stand-up comedian. It's true. It's like
he's Pete Holmes. Is that Pete
Holmes? Pete Holmes, yes.
He's pretty good too. Yes. I like that. I love that show. I love that show.
I know exactly. Show.
That was a great show.
It was. It's like I hope it comes back. I don't know if Artie will be on there with his collapsed nose.
No, yeah.
Oh man, Jesus. All right, sorry. Let's get back to it. Oh yeah, I can blip. I forgot. I should have a little blipping. Little blips. See, here's the advantage to Jay and I yapping and pausing. We can blip.
Fast forward right through it.
Boop. There we go.
So I believe we were talking about the reason that Ashley went to Florida.
Yes, ma'am.
So in your discussions with Ashley, either text or in person or on the telephone, did she indicate to you that she was going to Florida because she was sick? And
that was the initial indication. Yes, ma'am.
And her mother could better take care of her.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Throughout the time that you saw Doug and Ashley together, how did Doug act?
Objection. Foundation.
In particular, on the opening night and all the way through their relationship. Opening night, totally in love. Both of them in love with each other. Doug was always very respectful. He was very, very respectful with her in front of me, both that initial night and then the next weekend, I believe in May, that I spent down in Sarasota, Bradenton with them. Every time he was respectful of her. They were in love. They never showed anything in front of me other than caring for each other.
That was going to be my next question. So did you see anything other than that?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Cross. Mr. Taylor, as I've said before, you're free to use the podium if you prefer to cross from table. Yes, sir.
Looks like a comfy witness chair, I have to say.
Morning, Mr. Benefield.
Good morning, Mr. Taylor.
You were a naval pilot, correct?
Navy pilot, yes, sir.
I think you mentioned the training that you had briefly, correct?
I went through extensive training all my 30-year career, yes, sir.
Okay. Some of that training included close quarters combat, did it not?
No, sir, never.
No hand-to-hand training at all?
No, sir.
Do you remember having a conversation where you related information about close quarters combat?
Yes, sir. I was in charge. I was the senior.
Do you remember that conversation?
Which one, sir? I don't know which
about
one you're
close
speaking
quarters combat.
If it was in perspective of me running security and self-defense training for my airline, not the Navy.
You received no such training in the Navy.
No, sir, never.
Did Doug admit to you firing the gun in the
Objection.
kitchen of their home?
Can we approach?
Yes.
Bob, is that one of those things where it didn't matter if he wanted to say that, right? Like,
Yes.
No, I think he wants to show that
Oh.
he didn't tell him everything. He didn't know.
No, but I think what Jay's asking is that he knew that it would be objected to, but he wanted the like
I
either
don't
way.
think it should be. I don't think it's hearsay. He's not offering it to prove he actually did it.
Yeah, but the point is that you know you're going to get the objection, whether or not it's going to fall under a hearsay objection or it's non-hearsay. I think, you know what I mean. It's like, you know, that thing
Might
where
be non-hearsay.
I understand, honey. What I'm saying is that sometimes you just throw out a question that you know is going to be objectionable.
I just don't think this is
Allie doesn't think that's one of them. She disagrees with us, Jay. From her lofty perch over there.
by the way, for the folks that asked, she is listening to Ashley Benefield is listening to the sidebar. That's why she has the headphones.
Or she's listening to some super dope hip hop, one of the two.
Or maybe just the best live trial stream in America or in the world. Maybe it's that. Hi, Ashley. Pull your ear to the Carol Burnett if you're listening to us.
Boop, boop. Can you, if you're watching
They should
and
have
listening to our stream, pull your ear and tap your nose once. Just one tap. Boop, 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 boop. Babe, don't start yelling at me. There's a sidebar. I could sense all the booping was going to cause me to be admonished by my beautiful wife. Because sometimes you don't like the goofiness. You don't like the goofiness. Oh, I think we're caught up.
Mr. Benefield, do you recall that Ashley had left your cousin Doug in the fall of 2017?
Yes, sir.
Specifically September 18th of 2017.
Yes, sir. I'm aware of that date and the events.
Do you recall writing to Ashley Benefield in a text in May of 2018, I'm a fan of
Objection.
yours?
Hearsay.
It's his.
Still an out of court statement being like, I mean, I guess you could argue maybe effect on the listener. I don't know. Oh, so another one. So, I mean, we're getting much more in-depth objections with respect to like these text messages, which I anticipated we're going to be hearing a lot of text messages throughout the course of the trial.
Just ask, were you a fan of Ashley's? Did you convey that to her once?
Right. I mean, there are definitely workarounds. But as we know, Caveman Lawyer here, you know, who before he started his opening, I don't know if you were watching.
I'm the older generation. I don't use technology, so I've never texted anyone in my life.
He may not know the workaround. You know what I mean?
I'm just an old caveman lawyer, and I'm here to tell a story to the jury.
I don't understand your modern times.
What is a cell phone? I'm not sure exactly what it does.
I mean, he doesn't even look that old. He's probably like 5 years older than me. That dude. What do you think that guy is? Like 60?
I would say 65, 70.
Ooh,
what do you guys
shit.
think?
Like, yeah, tell us in the chat. I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna go 63.
Oh,
right there.
Dizzy already has the answer without even us.
Oh, Diz. Wow. God
Real answer?
damn, Dizzy's like Janie on the spot, rather. Sorry about that, Diz. 74 years old. Wow.
Wait, that's the real answer?
Yeah, like Dizzy's not coming in with some bullshit.
Could've been guessing
QB
yes,
came
I
in.
guess.
Lindsay, yeah, you and I were at the same spot. I thought he was 63, so 10 years. God, he's bald. You can't tell. It's impossible to know.
Oh, I was talking about the witness. You were talking about the attorney.
I'm talking about
the
the
witness.
lawyer. Wait, Dizzy, which one are you talking about? Wait, what the hell? Wait, Steve's saying, do you guys remember the SNL skit Unfrozen Caveman Lawyer? What? What do you think of Steve, are you talking to somebody else?
I hope he is.
I mean, Steve, I only talk about Caveman Lawyer constantly. Phil Hartman, yes, the great Phil Hartman.
One of the all-time greats.
Oh, man.
Brilliant. Troy McClure.
That was a sad ending there. Kind of like a Oppo, potentially Oppo of this case, yeah. I mean, it is Allie keeps saying, I don't know. That's why we have to listen to the evidence. She could be the manipulative one. That's why we go to trial. I have no judgment whatsoever. I'm willing to hear all of it. I have not formed any kind of opinion at all. Boy, this is a lengthy. I think the judge most likely is trying to get in front of this issue because there is going to be a lot of text messages that are going to come out, and they are going to want to be put into evidence, and we're going to continue to get these objections. So I have a feeling instead of the judge saying, okay, well, let's not have, whoa, the guy.
Look, someone's at the door.
Somebody, or there's a dog walking by outside. What do you mean?
People are asking, can be blipped, Bob. Are we live or?
I think we are live. I think we are. Oh. Jeez. Sorry about the honey.
So, Mr. Benefield, following Ashley's leaving your cousin Doug in September 18th of 2017, were you a fan of Ashley Benefield's in May of 2018?
I don't remember specifically that word, but it may have been in our lengthy phone calls and text messages from January through June, possibly.
You expressing support for her?
Support for her story of the case, yes, sir.
Yeah. And did you tell her, in fact, at one point, she married the wrong Benefield?
Sustained.
Did you feel that she married the wrong Benefield?
Relevance.
Approach.
Already getting spicy, folks. I knew it was going to get spicy. That was objection.
Objection. What is this guy doing?
Those are some angry objections right there, folks.
Like,
and this is day one, witness one. It's going to get spicy by the end of this thing.
Big time. Big time. You know, because like this case more than most, like where we have these self-defense cases, which I'm talking about all the time. And I meant to talk about, I'd seen a few questions in the chat on whether or not she's going to testify. It's my position that typically in a self-defense case, you're going to need your defendant to testify.
Yeah.
Unless you have some way to kind of build what?
He just told this whole story that only she and he knows.
Who?
The lawyer on opening.
What are you saying?
How's he getting any of that in if she doesn't testify?
Right, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, he just said they were the only two in the house.
I agree. Boy, Allison is like the peanut gallery over here today, just firing. Like, why don't you jump on the live with us? Allie's going to be, she's tagging in around noon because I got to record with Bill Dorsch that I'm going to throw up tonight at 9:00. So Allie will definitely be tapping in.
While we wait, are we live? Or if we're waiting, I have a quick story I can tell.
Tell a story because I think I'll try to bloop, but I think
we can wait till the break though because
I think we're pretty close to live. What do you mean? Are we way behind? Oh, there we go. It's always the way to know. She takes the headphones off. That's our cue, Jay.
Yep.
Are you saving the story for later?
Yeah, I can save it for the break. You can play it. You can go.
Okay.
Overruled.
Oh, overruled.
Thank you. So, Mr. Benefield, after expressing your support for Miss Benefield in 2018, several months after she left your cousin Doug. By the way, do you know why she left your cousin Doug?
The initial reason or the second reason, sir?
Do you know the reasons that Ashley Benefield gave your cousin Doug as to why she left him?
Objection, hearsay.
I'm going to need the source. Is this from,
Well, I'm not going to ask.
is it being offered for the truth? I mean,
Yeah, it's not being offered for the truth, and I'm not going to go into the substance. I just want to know if this witness knows.
overruled.
You can answer. Did Doug share with you the reasons why she left him?
He shared two different reasons.
Yeah, all right. So now you express several months following that you're a fan of hers. And do you also not say to her that she married the wrong Benefield?
I don't remember that specific text
Ooh.
in the 6 months
Ooh,
of open communication between she and I.
spicy.
All right. Let me see if I can refresh your recollection.
Oh boy.
Objection to evidence. What'd you say? Objection what?
Overruled.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Let me see what you're showing.
Sure. I'm going to show you a document. Why don't you take a moment and look at it and tell us if that refreshes your recollection as to whether or not you suggested to Miss Benefield she'd married the wrong Benefield.
It does not say anything about marrying the wrong Benefield.
Does it say,
Objection.
Hold on. Sir, has that document, without identifying it, we need to lay the predicate.
Ooh, predicates, Jay.
Mr. Benefield,
Lay the predicate,
does that
sir. What are you
document
doing?
reflect
Don't
the
you know how to lay a predicate, sir?
that you shared with Miss Benefield?
I believe it's correct and unaltered.
All right. And it's between you and Miss Benefield, is
Yes,
it
sir.
not?
Yes, sir.
All right. And it's accurate, is it not?
I believe so.
Okay. Now, may I approach?
Yes.
Wait, Allie, you accidentally hid one of our subs. We think, hey, what's up, Kaylin?
How do I hide somebody?
Like you're a mod. So
I'm not even.
listen, man.
I feel like it was a pocket thing because she like deleted a message and then hit a person, but I think she totally did it on that. It was like a
pocket hide,
butt hide.
butt hiding. But so Reba,
Dizzy fixed
hopefully
it.
Dizzy
Yeah.
fixed it. That was purely accidental
How do you guys know I did it?
because it wasn't
Because
us.
it shows on who does it. The mods
Oh.
can see.
Yeah, there you go. Allison hid Reba. Wow. Wow. Wow.
How do I even do that?
I don't know, but you did it.
Come in there and hide you.
But Reba.
Do you say thank you, wrong
Objection.
Benefield?
Yeah, approach, Mr.
Wow,
Quinn.
spice.
Man. It's getting spicy. So we got old Tommy boy over here macking on his cousin's gal pal. You know, he's like, hey,
You
listen,
married the wrong one.
listen, that guy, he's okay. But me, I'm awesome.
I'm a pilot. I made this machine that
I make
helps your
machines and then I fly them. I fly the very machines that I make. Look at this suit. Do you see this tie? Look at the knot on this tie. It's beautiful. You could hang with that guy, or you could hang with me. Hey, I'm Tommy. Yeah, so all right, they're putting Tommy on blast right away. Well, there's Reba, she knows, she feels you. Damn, I feel the
Oh,
love.
good.
now.
She's back. Good.
Good. We missed you, Reba, in that brief 1 minute respite of hopefully you took that time to reflect on all the things that are wonderful about your life and how great everything is going for you.
By the
And
way, we should say sometimes it happens we've all done it. So if you ever find that like you can't chat, like email me or Bob, I'm the shamegoodj@gmail.com. Email us and like, hey, was that? Or if you're an asshole, we may have blocked you on purpose. But
you may get the asshole block. Boop.
but if you weren't, and like you're awesome, like we love Reba, hit us up. So let us know, because sometimes it just happens. And the thing that sucks is if you hide someone, it's okay, you can unhide them. If you time someone out, you can't undo a timeout. So whether it's a day or however long it is, you can't undo it. I don't know why YouTube doesn't let you. So just let us know if that ever happens on accident.
Yes, please, and thank you. Because like a lot of times I'm not even like our mods are, and Jay's pretty good about looking at the actual YouTube chat. When I'm in StreamYard, I don't see any of the mod action. So I'll be sitting there. Aw, Allie feels so bad. She feels so bad. Oh, fuzzy puppy.
I do. Angela got accidentally timed out when she talks shit about Subway, which was fine with me. I hate Subway, so I made it very clear that wasn't a controversial opinion. That was okay. It was just an accidental time.
Wait, what? So I remember when I had to bring the girls to Subway. Did I?
Yes, it happened then, and
I think time somebody out. Me?
No, you didn't do it. Someone else did it on accident. But it was like her last comment was like Subway sucks or something, and she's like, "Wait, did I get timed out for?" There's Steve, who's a big fan of Subway and their oatmeal raisin cookies. He
loves the oatmeal raisin cookies. I like, you know what? I love them too. They are quite delicious. But like Steve went like, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread type shit with the oatmeal raisin cookies over there. Now they have the foot long cookies over there. Have you seen these things?
Yeah, I've never had them. I've seen them. Yeah,
they're pretty good. And they also have the churros, like the foot long churros, which I must say the 2 times that I've tried a bite from my children's churros were stale as fuck. So not recommending churros, and they were stale as fuck, Jay. That's all.
I am not surprised that the churros from Subway are no good.
Stale, so goddamn stale.
Here's Steve, who still continues to contend that the best cookie on planet Earth is a Subway oatmeal raisin. But I will take a Pepperidge Farm white chocolate macadamia nut cookie over that any day of the week. Or Entenmann's has some good cookies. But I know there's some fans of Subway cookies. I didn't know that before.
I mean, Entenmann's makes delicious cookies.
They're the best. I love it.
Does the document I've shown you, Mr. Benefield, refresh your recollection of that particular exchange?
Yes, sir.
Now, would you tell us your recollection, having been refreshed, whether or not tell us what your response was to Ashley's text?
This is 6 months, and you want me to just focus on?
Just tell us what your.
He hates this so much.
Just tell us what your response was to Ashley's text, your recollection having been refreshed.
Jesus, dude, just spit it out, bro.
He's so
I'm
mad.
not even sure it's relevant to anything that's going on in the
Ashley says in the text.
Mr. Benefield.
He's so mad.
Please.
He's red.
Tell us what your response to Miss Benefield's text was now that your recollection has been refreshed.
There are multiple on the page, sir.
Mr. Benefield, I think you know
what
I'm referring to. Would you please answer my question?
I would like to answer it as it pertains to what she said.
I didn't ask you what she said, Mr. Benefield. I asked you to please tell us your recollection having been refreshed, what you said.
Would you like me to read that
Judge, I
bubble?
would object. We do not need to be reading from the document.
This
Deputy, would you please take the jury into the jury room?
Oh my
Give
God.
us 5 minutes. I'd appreciate it. Remember,
Oh,
please don't begin your discussions and deliberations amongst yourselves. You can use your phones if you need to contact people, but don't talk about the case with anyone else. And don't do any research on the people, places, things, or legal topics we've heard anything about.
you're so right, Bob. He's making this look 1,000 times worse.
Oh my
Just have the prosecution try to fix it on redirect. Don't fight him over this. Like,
Oh my God. It's like Allie was saying, maybe he's married and he doesn't. Who
All right,
gives a
you're okay.
shit?
The jury's out. Mr. Benefield, I'm going to excuse you to the hallway.
Yes, sir.
You were not to discuss your testimony or the questions that have been asked of you with anyone,
Yes, sir.
including the attorneys.
Yes, sir.
And you're not to let anybody talk to you about anything that's going on inside the courtroom.
Yes, sir.
I mean, once again,
That's right,
didn't
we'll
the
do that.
state warn
Shall I leave the paper
their
here?
witness
So leave that there.
that
Yes, sir.
this thing was going to probably come up?
right, great point.
Question was, did you tell Ms. Benefield that she married the wrong person,
The wrong Benefield.
the wrong Benefield? And I sustained that as hearsay with no exception. I found that it didn't provide impeachment of any prior inconsistent statement. What I did allow was him to testify as to his then existing mental, physical, or emotional conditions or feelings, with the question being, did you feel that she had married the wrong Benefield? There was then the attempt to use these text messages that I still have not seen. I don't know what the substance of them was, but where we were was my understanding, and what I heard was the defense was attempting to refresh the witness's recollection. And what I have said is it sounded like it started to morph into some mix of impeachment and refreshing recollection and some elements of introducing a past recollection recorded. And that's where we're at.
Refreshment. Call it a refreshment.
State your objection.
My objection, first of all, is the predicate has been laid to refresh recollection. But then the witness has not been asked what his recollection is, other than to read it off of the paper, which is commingling past recollection and either past recorded or something of that nature. I think we're commingling the two different things. And if this witness needs to be asked, if it refreshes his recollection,
Brooklyn hates
then he can be
crumble.
asked that question
Remember that,
without
Frank.
reading the document. I would object to any reading of the document because it is extrinsic evidence if it's being used for impeachment. I do not believe his state of mind is relevant to a material issue in this case. I think the defense is trying to say that it goes to bias, but I'm not quite sure how that fits into it. So my objection would be it's improper refreshing recollection. It's improper impeachment. It's also improper prior recorded recollection, and I would object to that being testified about.
Your response?
Yes. So as succinctly as I can, Your Honor, he's a creep. He acknowledged being a creep, and the jury will conclude he's a creep. It goes directly to his character.
Is that your legal
and
argument?
his bias. And that's why after he said, yes, it was accurate, I recall it, he cannot bring himself to say it. And the reason he can't bring himself to say it is because he knows that all these women on the jury are going to know exactly what he was referring to. So I am trying to impugn his credibility After listening to everything that he had to say to set up the state's position about how this relationship was so lovey-dovey between Miss Benefield and Douglas Benefield, and what a wonderful relationship it was, here we now have this witness very begrudgingly admitting that after Miss Benefield leaves Douglas Benefield, and she leaves the letter, which I know the court has seen because I attached it as an earlier exhibit to a motion, he's still supporting her. And he's not only supporting her, but he's telling her she married the wrong Benefield. Now, in my world, Your Honor, based upon the rules of evidence, I am entitled to go after his credibility, which he has put in question by virtue of taking the witness stand and becoming a witness. I did it the way the court wanted. I asked the magic question, does this refresh your recollection? He said it did. Now I want him to tell me, in response to my question, did you tell Miss Benefield she married the wrong Benefield? And he cannot bring himself to acknowledge it. He wants to talk about anything else but that. And I think, Your Honor, anything that I'm capable of showing where this witness, Doug Benefield's loving cousin, Tommy Benefield, where this witness showed his support for Ashley Benefield after she left Douglas Benefield, goes directly to his credibility. You can't get up there and testify to all of these things about how wonderful this relationship was, and then on cross-examination have to acknowledge that you were still saying you're a fan of Miss Benefield's after she leaves them, knowing the reasons she left them. I intentionally didn't go into the reasons to try to be straight with the court, but now I'm attempting to impugn his credibility. And he knows it, Judge. He's looking at me like a deer in the headlights.
I'm going to allow you to respond. I previously mentioned about confining arguments to legal and factual bases. I am also going to direct both sides to refrain from vituperative ad hominem attacks. I don't think we need to resort to name calling. I think it's inappropriate and unprofessional to refer to a witness as a creep.
Wow.
Right. With that
Oh
said,
boy.
go ahead for your response.
The first thing, Judge, I don't know if you have the copy of the text message up there. The defense could give it to you. Nowhere in there does it say she married the wrong Benefield. That is not what it said. First of all.
It doesn't say that either.
And second of all, Tommy Benefield never said that anything about their relationship and the tenor of their relationship once she left. He said, when I saw them together, they looked fine. Just because that changes down the road and he knows they're having problems, I am unaware of how that affects his credibility. He can clearly see that they're having problems later on down the road. I don't see how the timing being different somehow makes him inconsistent and somehow that attacks his credibility or it shows his bias. If Mr. Taylor wants to ask him, were you aware that there were problems after that? Yes, I was aware of that. I mean, in Mr. Taylor's argument, he is impeaching the fact that that Tommy Benefield saw them acting lovey to each other. If that wants to be impeached or explored, then ask Mr. Benefield if he saw them after that or knew that they were not lovey and having that type of relationship. I don't understand the relevance of these types of conversations. I think the defense tends to say everything is about bias, but it has to comport with the rules of evidence. And I would say that this does not.
All right, thank you both very much. So my ruling earlier was that these statements by Mr. Benefield towards the defendant were hearsay. I wasn't aware of any exception that would allow them. They appear to be offered for the truth of the matter that is asserted. So I didn't allow them on that grounds. What I allowed was the defense to ask, because there had been testimony by Tommy Benefield that they were always respectful to each other. He never saw anything except care for each other, and they were in love both ways. I think it is an impeachable question to ask, did you feel that she married the wrong Benefield? But it's not what he wrote. It's what he felt. That's where you're mixing apples and oranges, the defense is. The question that was presented to me was, did you feel that she married the wrong Benefield? He can answer yes or no. If there's then some extrinsic evidence that may impeach him on that point, I would then have to make a determination is that extrinsic evidence admissible or not? Because if it's a collateral matter that's not material, then the as you well know, Mr. Taylor, you get the answer you get. Where we had an additional part of this analysis was the fact that there was a demonstrated lack of memory, because the answer was, I don't know, as opposed to, no, I didn't say that, or yes, I didn't feel that, yes, I did feel that. So then the path was started on was refreshing recollection. As I've mentioned before, and I mentioned pre-trial, I expect attorneys to know the differences between impeachment by a prior inconsistent statement. That's one path. Refreshing recollection is a second path, and introduction of past recollection recorded, which is a separate path. And the reason I'm sustaining the objection is because it started off with refreshing. Does it refresh your memory? And then we got right back into the documents themselves, which I've already ruled were hearsay. So it's for impeachment purposes only. You can ask him about I allowed you to ask what his feelings were, but not to get into these documents.
When he lies, when he asks him the question,
I don't know how to say
do you think that Ashley married the wrong?
any more clear than that.
And he says no.
So
If you're refreshing his recollection, then we're going to take that path.
Well, why did you
yes,
text her this?
I believe I did that. I believe I refreshed his recollection and he acknowledged that. So then my question was,
What did you say? And that gets back to the documents. If he says his memory is refreshed, you take the document back, or whatever the thing is that you use to refresh recollection is to be retrieved. And then the person testifies from their own personal knowledge.
so once he said that he recalls, I then asked him if he said that you married the wrong Benefield. That's what I said. I will be happy to go through that again, Your Honor. Now, did I leave the document there when I asked him that? Yes. I didn't feel it was necessary to take the document back, but after he acknowledged that his memory was refreshed, I asked him, did you say that she married the wrong Benefield? And that's where we were when Your Honor sent the jury out. He was trying to come to terms with how he was going to answer that.
Osbrook saying judge doesn't know how impeachment goes. Tell him, Mikey. Well, I think it's
The other
They just
text,
asked him,
Your Honor, is just
did you
indicative
feel
of
that you
continued
married the
support
wrong Benefield? And if he says no, then he can impeach
for
him.
Miss Benefield.
Then why did you say this?
Sir, this doesn't say what you're asking him.
Oh shit.
Now approach.
Wow.
Thank you, Ron Benefield. Miss Benefield says, that's very cool. You should be so proud of what you were doing. His response is, thank you, Ron Benefield. What that means, Your Honor, what that suggests is, thank you. You should have been with me.
Sustained.
I assure you, Judge, that any female will draw that conclusion immediately.
That does not match what you're asking, sir.
Wow.
All right, are we ready to bring the jury back in? Do you want to treat this as your mid-morning break? You guys can take 5 minutes.
Can I take 5 minutes, please?
All right, am I going to be allowed to get an answer from him?
When we go, I've sustained the objection. All right, so we'll take,
I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify your ruling. It's my understanding that you said he could ask how he felt.
correct. The last objection was the questions were going to, what did you write? What did you say in your text messages? Sustained.
And then, so, okay, thank you.
So we're clear. Did you feel she married the wrong Benefield?
I've already ruled you could ask that question.
Yeah. Ask the question. Because he's right. That's definitely what the implication was. I don't give a shit if it says, did you, you know, I mean, clearly he says wrong Benefield. That's what he means. Like,
I missed. What was the lead up to that? I missed, like, what did she say that why does
so like we didn't really get enough of it here. Let's go back.
It's my,
I'm going to be
I want to treat this what you're asking, sir.
will in witness.
I love this
What you were-
incredulous look on the judge.
Yeah.
He's like this guy just stepped in a giant pile of shit and he can smell it.
Now approach.
Here we go. Let's see what he says.
Thank you, Ron Benefield. Miss Benefield says, that's very cool. You should be so proud of what you were doing. His response is, thank you, Ron Benefield.
What does she
What
mean?
that
Proud of what
means,
you? I don't
Your Honor, what
I don't
that
know.
suggests is,
look at his face. The judge.
thank you. You should have been with me.
Sustained.
Clearly, the judge doesn't agree. I wish there was
assure
more
you,
to it than
Judge,
what
that
you
any
just said. I don't.
female will draw that conclusion immediately.
That does not match what you're asking, sir. All
I
right,
need
we
more of
need
that.
to bring
We
the
need
jury
more
back in. Do you want to
context.
treat
Why
this as
didn't
your
they read
mid-morning
back
break? You guys can take
further?
5 minutes.
can I
Yeah,
take 5
exactly.
minutes, please?
All right, am I going to be allowed to get an answer from him?
When we go, I've sustained the objection. All right, so we'll take,
I'm sorry,
I think
I
they're
just
supposed
wanted
to
to
be in
clarify
live,
your
so we can
ruling.
go
It's my
right into it.
understanding that you said
Let's see what we got. Bloop, bloop, boop, 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 boop.
Bob, this might be one of the times where you take your little mouse and blip it over with the mouth.
Oh, Jay, that's not nearly as fun. You got me like using the 5-second bloop, and I love it. And now you're getting me to use the slider. Oh man. All right, let's see. Judge has a hearing aid.
I was trying to see if it was a hearing aid or it was like part of his glasses. So it is
I
a
think
hearing
it's a
aid.
hearing aid. And he ain't hearing what the defense is trying to put forward here.
Nice, Bob. Nice work. That was nice.
What? Allie says now he's going to think this lawyer's on some bullshit the whole time after he reads the text messages. He's like, oh, this guy's so full of shit.
That face he made would probably indicate that Ali is correct.
Yeah.
State, where's Mr. Benefield?
He's driving into the ocean.
He gone.
Sorry, I didn't.
He's never
We
coming
just
back.
want
You know
time
what?
for him to
Fuck
get here earlier
this.
too, so we just need our witnesses ready to go.
Well, they did a room for the state attorney's office witnesses down there. Because the press has this room.
I think you could bloop it, Bob. I think you could bloop it a little bit.
Wait, now I'm allowed to bloop again?
Well, you could bloop it until it's.
Boop, boop, boop. Oh, there he is. I thought that guy jetted. He's like, I'm out of here, bro.
He's in his plane. he's on the runway. They had to get him.
Sir, get off the babysitter. Oh, that was like
All right, Mr. Benefield, come on back in and resume the witness stand. You'll recall that you are under oath.
Yes,
sir. Sir, as we took that break, did anybody attempt to approach you or speak with you about your testimony,
just my
the
wife
evidence, or this case?
saying
So,
if,
did you
this
speak
guy says
with
what I
anyone
think
about
about your
your
deep shit
testimony, the questions asked of you, or the evidence of this case?
No, sir.
All right. Let's go and bring the jury in, please.
Missy name, she is. Joel, get off the babysitter.
You all go ahead and have a seat. Whenever you find your spots, just sit on down.
Well, that's no fun though, bitch.
All right, everyone gonna have a seat. Members of the jury, during that break, did anybody discuss the case amongst yourselves, discuss the case with anybody outside of the jury, or do any research on the people, places, things, or legal topics we've heard anything about? Everybody says no. All right, Mr. Taylor.
Mr. Benefield, when we last were assembled, you were, we were waiting for you to answer the question whether you felt Ashley had married the wrong Benefield.
No, sir, I did not believe that.
Was it a joke?
It was an attempt to keep a communication open between us.
You know, we've established that you were aware that Ashley left Doug in September of 2017.
Yes, sir.
And we've also established that following that, you expressed your support of her.
Yes, sir.
All right, now I want to direct your attention specifically to the month of November of 2017. Were you aware of a domestic violence injunction that Ms. Benefield sought and obtained from South Carolina court?
Yes, sir, at that time.
And did you express to Ms. Benefield
You can ask the question.
your support of her after she obtained that domestic violence injunction?
Sustained.
Did you support Ms. Benefield in November of 2017 following the issuance of a domestic violence injunction?
Not specifically about that, sir.
Do you recall expressing your support on Saturday, November 4th, 2017?
I don't remember that specifically, sir.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Approachal. It's a mini approachal.
Mr. Benfield, I'm going to show you a document, see if this refreshes your recollection.
I see Patricia's a little bit behind time. Let's get into the churro convo. That are those delicious roasted nuts where they have that delicious sugary shit that you can smell like halfway across the park. You know what I'm talking about? They sell them in those like paper cones. They're like some kind of like nuts that they like have in some delicious sugary coating.
Disney
You
World?
smell them. Yeah, Disney, man.
No, I don't know.
The people will know. The people will know. TH, does he have wide shoulders or just a very, very small head?
The areas that I check,
Are you calling this man
refresh your
Beetlejuice?
recollection.
Yes, sir. Those appear to be my statements.
All right, recollection having been refreshed, Mr. Benefield, on November 4th, following
Yes.
the issuance of the domestic violence injunction to Miss Benefield, did you express your support to her?
There are two problems with your question for me, sir. I'm going to ask you.
Would you answer my question, and then you can certainly feel free to explain it?
I was unaware of I believe I was unaware of any result of any pending case in South Carolina at the time I texted that.
I thought you just told us you were aware.
I became aware after the fact when the mutual protection order was entered. I found out about it after the fact, but I don't remember the date of that event as it relates to the November 4th.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
State, any redirect?
No.
Can this witness be released?
Yeah.
No, Amy.
Mr. Taylor, can this witness be released from his?
You come in a nutsack.
Sir, you are released from your subpoena. The prior restrictions that I placed upon you are
Wow, I'm
removed.
surprised she didn't have anything on
State, call your
redirect.
next witness.
I mean, they call Eva Benfield.
Oh, all right. Wow. We're going right to the daughter.
Oh,
So
wow.
this will be interesting testimony. She was no fan based on the limited. I tried to watch the 48 hours that they did on this. Not a fan of Ashley.
This is going to be interesting, folks.
It's going to be interesting.
Woman that came into her dad's life at that time.
Yeah, I mean, which is normal, right? I mean, she's a teenage girl. This what she's like. He marries her without telling her. You know, it's like all of a sudden, like, oh wait, you're what? You're married? Really? You know, kind of a weird. That was a weird move by dad. And it's as to like why redirect? You know, like I don't think he made any point. Like
Yeah.
the jury didn't hear the creep comment. Only we did.
Right.
Only we were privy to that amazing comment.
Good point.
Guy's a creep. Huge creep.
He better not pull that shit again with this judge. He's going to let him have it, I feel like. Thanks for being here, everyone, as we wait for this next witness. If you haven't hit that like, please hit it. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. Have them come on down. I wonder if they're going to take break at 12. They start early, and I wonder also what time they're going to end. Be interesting to learn their schedule here. $5:30? 9 to 5:30? Holy shit, Dizzy. That's a long day. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Spitfire. Thanks, Dizzy. 5:30.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning. My name is Judge White. I'm presiding over the case. Just make yourself comfortable in that chair. Get about 12 to 15 inches from the microphone. It does adjust up, down, left, and right as you need it. Actually, you're just fine right there. I think that's close enough.
Okay.
Speak in a loud, clear voice, and we'll hear everything. Go ahead.
Please state your name.
Eva Benefield,
How do you spell your first name?
EVA,
And how old are you now?
23.
What was your relationship to Doug Benefield?
He was my father.
And who was your mother?
Renee Benefield.
And we heard from the previous witness, she died, unfortunately, at some time before this case, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When did you first find out about someone named Ashley Benefield?
It was August of 2016, about 9 months after my mom passed.
Okay. And how did you find out about her?
My dad was on the phone when he picked me up from school, and he had his phone on speaker, and they mentioned him having a girlfriend, and if he was going to bring his girlfriend to a conference that they had that weekend.
And was that the first time you had any information that there might have been a girlfriend?
Yes.
Okay. How old were you at the time?
I was 15.
At the time, were you upset with him about that?
No, I just told him that I trusted him, and if that's what made him happy, that I would be happy for him.
And about how long after that did you find out they were married?
It was 2 days after.
And how did you find out that they were married?
My dad came up into my room, and he said, "Eva, we need to have a chat downstairs with Ashley." She was at the house at the time. And I said, I don't think we need to. I understand that you're dating her and you're happy, but please just, give me my space a little bit. I don't want to have a conversation. And he said, "No, I think it's really important we do." And I said, "The only time that I would want to have a conversation with y'all is if you told me that you were going to propose." And when those words came out of my mouth, he told me that they were married.
Okay. So that's how you found out they were married.
Yes.
Did Ashley eventually move into your house?
Yes.
And that was the house in South Carolina?
Yes, ma'am.
At the time, who all lived in the house? Just the three of you?
Yes.
How was their relationship together that you saw?
They were just with each other all the time. It was very lovey-dovey. They were very touchy-feely, PDA. Any event with school or extracurricular that I was in, they were together. They'd go grocery shopping together, go travel together. They never left each other's side.
Okay. And how did you and Ashley get along?
It was friendly at first.
Okay. You said at first.
Yes.
And then what happened?
Over time, she tried to reprimand me a little bit more and kind of step into a motherly role. And I did not like that because it was so short after my mom passed away.
Okay.
What's the objection?
Relevance.
Sustained.
And in Ashley's interactions with you, or interactions that she had or disagreements that she had with your father, how did you observe her to act?
Can you repeat the question?
I'm sorry, it wasn't a good question. Whenever she had a disagreement with you, how would she act?
It was almost temper tantrum like. It was
Objection. Impermissible character evidence.
I'm sorry.
Character evidence.
Overruled.
Okay, so it was temper tantrum like, and you didn't sound like you were finished. What were you saying?
she would go directly to my dad and tell him that I wasn't obeying.
Okay. And did her reactions to you seem to be on the level of the situation, or did she get more angry at the situation?
Usually they were overreactions over small things.
Okay. And how about interactions with your dad? Did you ever hear her argue with your father?
I heard her strongly voice her opinions over and over and over again.
Okay. Now, you said over and over and over again. Is that something that you heard on a regular basis or something you only heard once?
It was on a regular basis.
Okay. And when she was voicing her opinions to your father, was he ever reacting to that?
No, he would just sit quietly and listen.
Did you ever see them fight?
No,
Verbally fight?
no,
Okay. Did you ever see them physically fight?
no.
How often would you say that Ashley and your father would disagree within your hearing?
Never.
Okay. You said if Ashley was trying to get her point across that she would go on and on about that?
Yes.
Okay. So you don't term that as a disagreement?
No.
Okay. What would you term that as?
My dad just listened to her voice her concerns.
Okay. Did you ever hear your dad at any time yell at him?
No.
Did you ever hear your dad do something or say something that was controlling to her?
No.
Did you ever see or hear your dad threaten her?
Objection, leading. Overruled.
Did you ever see or hear your dad threaten her?
No.
Did you ever see or hear your dad get physical with her?
No.
No further questions.
Wow.
Cross.
Yes.
Not nice to a child.
Yeah.
Or was.
Good morning, Ms. Benefield.
Good morning.
Tread
You met
lightly.
Previously at a deposition, correct?
Correct.
And I apologize to you for meeting you under these circumstances. I'm required to ask you a few questions based on the testimony that you've given us. You lived in the house at the time that Ashley and your father were first married.
Yes.
And you found out from your father that he had married Ashley when he introduced her to you.
It wasn't when I was first introduced. It was a day after.
So the day after, you said?
Yes.
Okay. So your mother had passed away approximately 8 months earlier,
9 months.
9 months earlier. And your father, with no advance knowledge, came and introduced you to his new wife.
Yes.
There was a hole in the ceiling of the kitchen in your home, correct?
Correct.
You know what that hole was, how it got there?
Objection. Calls for hearsay.
No.
I don't know if it will or
Speculation.
not.
I would prefer the question not be asked.
Okay.
Can we approach?
Yes.
No, Joe.
I didn't think I prefer the question. Is that a legal objection? I prefer the question not to be asked.
Yes.
Yeah, no shit. We heard your objection. It doesn't seem like it was
I
right
hate
though.
that question. I don't want him to say it. Thank you. Let's see if I got any boopies. Boop, 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 boop. Oh, all right. Let's go.
Loopy.
Wait, are they still on the approachal?
Yeah, I think they're just showing how freaking nervous she is. Poor girl. She's doing great.
She is. And like the lawyer's doing a fine job. You got to tread carefully. You've got a young witness up there. Her father's been killed. Like he can't come at her hard. Like this is where I would have Allie be asking the questions here. Boop, 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 boop.
I need to tell you afterwards what happened in court the other day. It was so horrible.
Was it side-eyeing? Oh.
It was order of protection
Mm-hmm.
where the guy is now in a
They might be done. Her headphones are off.
Did you know that your father studied close quarters defense in the Navy?
Yes.
And tell us what close quarters defense comprises.
I'll allow it briefly so she can explain the basis of her knowledge.
Well,
Allie
let me
C-Dub said she thought you were
give the
relatable
court a
and
little better
horrible
insight
on
into
your
this.
own.
Ms. Benefield, do you hold a black belt?
Yes.
Thank you. See that?
And are you trained in defensive combat fighting?
Taekwondo.
Did you and your father often discuss different styles of defensive fighting?
We had the conversations when I was practicing, when I was
Okay.
10.
And tell us were you trained in close quarters defense.
Yes.
All right. Tell us what it entails.
In hand-to-hand combat.
Okay. And it's the type of hand-to-hand combat where if confronted by a weapon, rather than turning and run, you're trained as to how to remove the weapon from the other person's hands.
Well, you're told to first ask for no conflict, and then if they proceed, yes.
Yeah. In other words, your objective is to take the weapon away.
If there's a weapon involved, yes.
Were you aware that a domestic violence injunction had been issued by the court in South Carolina?
No.
Give me 1 second, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
So is Tiny Table Guy also some sort of like co-counsel? Like, seems like he's just asking him like about what to do.
I don't think so. Didn't you guys say that the judge wouldn't let Tiny Table Guy sit at the big boy table?
Benefield.
Oh, paralegal. Thank you, Jason.
And what?
Was your dad fixated with Ashley?
I think they were fixated with each other.
Did you make a prior state? Whoops. Did you express at any time that your dad, your words, not mine, was fixated with Ashley?
I might have.
Give me just a moment, Judge.
Whoa, Shiraz.
What'd she do?
Gifted 20 memberships.
Oh!
Thank you, Shiraz. Wow.
Aw, family hugs. I'm 20. Thank you, Shiraz. We always give her you. Look at all this new fam, Joe.
So awesome. Love it. Welcome, everyone.
Love it, love it, love it.
Do you remember having your deposition taken?
Yes.
Proper impeachment objection.
I need page and line,
Um,
and I don't have a copy of it.
Yeah, I was just first asking her the question. Do you remember sitting for a deposition?
Yes.
Let me pass to you this document and see if it refreshes your recollection.
So maybe approach.
Approach.
Page and line. Page and line. That was it. Were you there for that?
Sorry,
I don't know if you. I don't know if you're there for that when Morrissey was like being super snippy and Baldwin, and they're like, the defense attorney's just trying to like ask, and she's like, page and line,
Wow.
page and like she was so. Oh
Yeah, man. That all went so badly for her.
yeah.
I'm still salty that Allie and I were, I don't know what we were doing. Oh, yeah, we had just got
That's a podcast festival.
Yeah, jeez. Oh, jeez. Oh, gee. Oh, you know what? You know what I forgot? I still have 5
Nice.
to give away, which I'm going to do right now.
Get ready, folks.
Ooh, there it goes. Gifting out 5 DD memberships.
Who's gonna get it?
Who's going to get it?
Nice.
Who's gonna get it?
Welcome, welcome.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
That's
Steve-O got
right.
one. Nice.
Hey. Who?
Steve, publicly buzzed.
Steve-O. I love that. I love that. I think I got one. I think Halle Berry, who's a always giver, she had gifted someone. I got one from her.
Nice.
Welcome, Snappy. Welcome, Lexi. So glad you get Steve-O. Is Steve even in here? See,
Yeah, he's right
there.
there.
He is. There's my guy. What's up, Steve-O? Welcome. Yo. I think she's doing very well on the stand.
Yes.
All right, let's try some bloop bloops. Bloop, 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 bloop. Oh,
Nope.
wait. Boop, 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 boop. Seems good. Natalie, this is Eva Benfield, Doug's daughter, the victim's daughter. Maybe victim. Yeah.
The word that you had used to refer to your dad's interest in Ashley was what?
When are you referencing?
In general. Was the word fixated? Was that the word you used?
Yes.
That's all.
Right, redirect.
No, thank you.
All right, can this witness be released?
No.
Yeah.
Or- Okay, yes, but no, so you know. All right, Ms. Benefield, you've not been released from your subpoena.
Florida.
And the rule of sequestration has been invoked. What that means is that you can't be in the courtroom anytime that there's testimony being given or evidence being presented. Because this is being shown on TV or the internet or something, you can't watch it outside of court. You can't watch what's going on inside of court. You can't be inside of court. You also may not discuss your testimony with any other witnesses or any of the attorneys. Better practices don't talk about it with anybody else. And none of the other witnesses nor the attorneys can talk with you about what's going on in court. Do you understand all of that?
Yes, sir.
All right. And again, you're not released from your subpoenas. You need to remain available.
Okay.
All right. But for now, you're excused.
Great job, Eva. Great job.
I didn't catch it, Emily, who didn't release her. Probably the prosecutor, because I imagine it was the prosecutor that subpoenaed her. And they may want to reserve her in case they need her for rebuttal. So I can guarantee you, in her mind, leading up to this day, this was going to be way, way more horrible than that. You know what I mean?
Right, members of the jury, it's right about lunchtime.
You could tell when she was done. She's
Let's
like,
go ahead and take our
Sober?
lunch break. It's just a couple of minutes before 12. In order to give you time to go and find what you want and everything, I'm going to ask you to be back in that jury assembly room downstairs at about 1:10. All right, so it'll give you about an hour and 10 minutes if you want to go somewhere. Certainly, there's plenty of places.
Is this
If you haven't
lunch?
been in downtown Bradenton
Yeah.
for a while, there's plenty of places up and down Main Street, 12th Street, all the way down to the water. There's some places on 13th, also some places a little bit south. Please leave your notes here. Do not discuss the case with anyone else outside of the jury or amongst yourselves. Please don't do any research on the people, places, things, or legal topics we've heard anything about. Remember also, it's kind of a small town. Sometimes it happens where jurors are sitting in one booth and somebody on the other side of that booth you hear talking about the case, or heard names that sound familiar or things that sound familiar. Remember, they may not know you're there. Just, hey, I'm on the jury. I need you to stop. If they don't, I need you to report it to the deputies as soon as you get back. All right, you're free to go.
For folks who are not on Eastern Standard Time, it is now 12, which means we'll be back at like 1:10.
lunch. Ellie's like, did you let him go for the day? Wait, it's over? Not over, hon. All right, so what should we do?
All
Should we
right, have a
start a
seat.
new stream after lunch?
Before I let you all go,
I would say so.
State, you had just mentioned that despite Eva Benfield not being released, you want her to remain in the courtroom.
Yes, pursuant to Marcy's law and pursuant to the earlier discussion.
All right, did you want to be heard? No. Okay, then she'll be allowed to remain in the courtroom as the
Nice.
next of kin.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Good.
All right, same with you all. I don't foresee, I mean, you've already, you said you exchanged witness lists, so you know who's going to be coming in the afternoon. Are there any that, because this morning we had talked about 4 different people, so 2 have testified. Whenever we get back, if there's any particular issues about any folks in the afternoon, let me know.
Okay.
All right?
And we're behind, so I'm not sure exactly when those other people will be coming on,
All
so.
right, we'll see you guys back here at 1:10.
Thank you.
1:10.
And we anticipate the jury coming back in at 1:15.
Correct, exactly.
All right, so let me see.
So that's an hour and 10 minutes, folks. It's up to you, Bob. Unless you want to keep it on, it's up to you.
No, here's what I'm going to do, though. I am going to create it right now. And then I'm going to portal everybody there.
Oh, look at you.
Look at that, dude. Look at it. Look at it.
Well, while
right,
he
so-
does that, thank you all for being here. So we'll be back in an hour and 10 minutes. We're covering this thing. We'll be on my channel tomorrow. Should be about 10 days from what I understand. So 2 weeks here. As you can see, I know we already have some conflicting opinions, but I see everyone's being respectful. So thank you for that.
We appreciate that. What time they say they come back, Jay?
1:10.
So that is 12
Hour, 10 minutes.
our time. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll do 12:05. Let everybody get settled in. All right. Okay, got that done. Okay, create live stream. All right, just bear with us a couple seconds. All right, so if you guys don't know, Jay and I love portaling people because it's a magic power. And who doesn't love magic? So Jay and I like to magically send you to our next streams, our friends' streams, because you can't stop us. And we like being in utter magic control at all times. All right, so let me go in here real quick.
And when you get to that new one, hit that like, get in the algorithm. We want to get more people here. We want to grow the fam.
Yeah, we had a great crowd this morning, man.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Great crowd. Super excited about that. Okay.
Just as long as it's not Chud's portal. Yeah, it's not Chud's, Amy. We're good. Not potato.
Yeah, no closets involved here, and no lorries. No lorries involved either. All right, let me just jump in here real quick. Okay, boop. Direct. Right, perfect. Okay. All right. I think we are good to go.
70-minute hour and 10 minutes, folks. We'll be back.
Yeah, so y'all, I set it for 12:05 my time. That's 1:05 Eastern Daylight Time. So we have a little 5-minute, get back in, get comfy, get your popcorn, Cheetos, whatever you're snacking on. All right. We love you guys. Thank you so much for hanging this morning. We look forward to seeing you back for the afternoon sesh. If you'd be so kind, if you have not liked it, please, when you minimize that chat, just hit that like button, share, subscribe, all the good things, because we love you guys so much. All right. We'll see you guys in about an hour.
See ya.
Later.